7 p.m. and I believe the entire Finance Committee is present, so calling this meeting of the Finance Committee to order. We are at least starting out hybrid this evening, so long as any of us are on Zoom, we'll do votes by roll call. So doing attendance, Mark Zero.
Here.
Emily Sisson.
Here.
Joe McDonough.
Here.
Marianne Downing.
Here.
Ed Ross.
Here.
Andre Kume.
Here.
John Sullivan.
Here.
And Joe Carnahan here.
Here.
Oh, Jeffrey Corbin. Sorry. We had a long meeting last week with Sharon in that spot. I didn't call on her for attendance.
Do I look like Sharon? Or?
No. Though you are camouflaged with the vertical stripes, I'm just saying. All right, anyway. Sorry about that. All right. So welcome, everyone, to the fourth in our weekly series of budget meetings. Main part of the agenda tonight will be just hearing about the warrant for the town meeting, annual town meeting this year. We do still have to vote on the budget. We'll have time for public comment at the beginning. One thing about the order of the agenda, as written, we're doing the budget first. But I'm wondering if we should, does anyone in the committee have a problem with us pushing that to the end so that people who, are here to maybe hear about pickleball don't have to wait for us to vote on 42 different budget line items? All right, cool. Okay, so in that case, next thing in order is public comment. Would anyone, and I do have Zoom open here, so hopefully I'll see, would anyone in the room, please? Oh, do we have a sign-in sheet? There is not one on the thing.
It is behind.
I'll sign it in.
Okay, and yeah, just say your name and street, that'll.
I'm Mike Holtman, 18 Milton Road, Reading, Precinct 4. And I am the president of the Reading Pickleball Players Association. So the Reading Pickleball Players Association is as surprised as everyone, I think, on the quote for the pickleball courts at Simon's Way. We were anticipating a quote significantly less than the 1.5 million. We greatly appreciate the efforts of the town, staff, and all the boards working on this to bring this to town meeting. And to validate the quote and make the project a reality. There's tremendous need in town, within the town, for this recreational space that directly benefits many of our community, especially seniors. We believe 7 dedicated lighted pickleball courts at this location is the best solution, and have raised over $200,000 to support this project. And we're going to continue to try and make it. We are prepared to work collaboratively to identify opportunities to reduce the costs considerably from where they are now. It will have less of an impact in reducing on the town and have less impact on reducing the number of courts or the quality of the courts we're seeking. Thank you.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands on Zoom. So, Matt, would you like to go through the warrant?
Yes, so we'll go through the warrant. Sharon is on Zoom, so hopefully people can see her. There's Sharon. So we'll go through the usual articles. I think Sharon could help more on the first financial articles, Article 4 and Article 5. So Article 4 is to amend the capital improvement budget for FY25. This is a standard article that we put on every year. There are several projects listed, Main Street traffic signals, funding for rotor control, firewall upgrade, lead replacement. So Sharon, did you have anything to add to Article 4 before we start taking questions on it?
Yes, I just wanted to mention that we had for Haven Street some debt scheduled that we didn't end up moving forward with, which is why you see an increase for fiscal 25 and 26. It's just to add more capital because debt went down.
Okay.
And do you want to go through the articles one by one and take questions at the end, or do we take questions as they come up? What's your preference on that?
I would say questions as we go, just so that people have it fresh in
Okay.
mind.
That sounds good. Okay.
Unless you don't want questions, and then we can just do them all in.
That would be good too. So that's Article 4, if there's any questions on what's listed there.
So,
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Karen, did the debt go down by exactly the same amount that the capital plan went up?
Almost. I think that there were some other changes that we made just here and there, just based on priority. There were things that were added later. I would say probably fiscal 26 matches. Yeah, fiscal 25 and fiscal 26 probably matches to some degree, but fiscal 25 had something else added. I'm trying to think. Oh, we actually had added an elevator for the fire for Main Street, and then we moved it out. So I think actually probably are changes that would mirror what the changes are in the capital plan.
Sharon, for FY '27, the facilities master plan, can you give a little color around that?
Yeah, so Joe Huggins had asked that we add $200,000 to bring in a consultant to go over all of the buildings and determine kind of what the needs are at each building and prioritize that list of to-dos kind of, just to having a third party take a look at all the buildings. And so that's what that is.
And I don't know if Joe's on, but do you know if that?
He is. He is.
I thought I did see Joe. Yeah, so Joe, just a quick follow-up. Was that in relation to what kind of happened within Parker, or is this was just something that was already out there and already scheduled to happen?
Yeah, no, this is something we've been talking about, I think Sharon and Matt, probably for a couple of years now, to get a good idea of where we are in terms of, we did the facilities assessments with the permanent building committee 3 years ago.
Yep.
And so we've got a good list of the conditions of the buildings, but now what the next question is, which buildings on the school side would be next for either a renovation or a replacement, and then on the town side. And it's a pretty extensive process where we would have our consultant go through and talk to all the stakeholders at the different, on the school side, the use of the buildings, look at the general conditions, and then sort of have a roadmap in front of us for the future so that we know what's coming down the line in terms of any replacement or renovations of any facilities in town.
And we have to do.
Yeah. Is that done? Good?
Ed, are you good?
Well, I did have a follow-up. Now, so I watched a little bit of the select board meeting last night, and they're talking about the overall, does this dovetail at all into the town master plan at all, or are these completely separate and distinct projects and evaluations?
I think Matt might be better answering that question.
At this point, I see them as separate but related. We're just beginning to talk about a master plan for the town. We haven't done one in 20 years. Joe's had this on the capital plan for a little bit. I think generally they'll feed into each other because we're going to talk about, buildings and projects. But right now I see them as sort of separate, and we haven't really just scratched the surface on the master plan.
And then the last question is, sorry, Joe and Sharon, just on my side. So that 200,000, that's just to engage with the consultant, or is that already kind of scoped out? That would be the real cost for it, or is that just a placeholder?
No, anytime we give you guys a price, it's a real number. It's been escalated also, because we knew we were gonna push it out to 27. At the end of this, we're gonna get a pretty detailed report with sort of rough order of magnitude for each project. But it takes a long time to do because we have to sit down and meet with, you know, like all the stakeholders in the school and the town side. So that number is accurate.
Awesome. And how long do you think that whole project will take?
I'm anticipating 6 to 9 months total time to do that.
Sorry, Joe, thanks. All good.
Good. I saw Emily and then Marianne and then Jeffrey, so we got lots of questions. Emily, please.
Sharon, can you just remind me, please, the Parker turf, we're planning to do debt for that starting in fiscal year 27?
Yes.
Okay, that was it. I just wanted to make sure that didn't need to additionally go on. Thanks.
Marianne, I believe you're up.
This question is for Joe. I'm just trying to bring my image I just had up, but in September 2019, I think it was September 12th, 2019, that's what I found, they did a big school building assessment. And so what would be different from then? You mentioned something you did 3 years ago.
I'm not sorry to interrupt you. I'm not sure which report you're talking about. Are you talking about the one that GNAP did for the space planning? Is that what you're talking about? I think that might be what you.
Possibly, yes.
Yeah, that was different. That was to look at like the enrollment numbers, and they had it was done by GNAP, and then it was redone again when we got close to doing work with the MSBA. But that was to look at like enrollment figures, district numbers, and things like that. It was not geared towards replacement of any of the buildings. This is different.
Okay, I mean, I know it was assessing whether the facilities were sufficient in size for what they wanted to do, and I know that fed into the need for Killam, not just enrollment,
Right.
but the condition of the building. So I'm just wondering,
It would be done by the same company that we had do that work, who's been doing work for the town for quite some time now. So it does keep the costs down because they have a lot of the history on the buildings and they know the conditions of our facilities. But this would go deeper into that. I just want you guys to think about, the last time we did, we know the MSBA renovations, the high school, the wood end, and the barrows were the most recent. But behind those, we have buildings that are approaching over 30 years since they've had work done to them. So it's going to go a lot deeper into it and look at that type of stuff.
okay, thank you.
Jeffrey, and I do see Mark Zarro on Zoom. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So Sharon, if you could check the numbers here, the FY26, when I do the addition, I get 388 instead of 386. And on the FY27, I get a net decrease of 23,000 instead of a net increase.
That looks to be a typo on both cases. I think I just entered it wrong, so I can change that.
Okay, before we vote, yeah, I'd like to correct it.
All right. Mark.
Hey, Joe, a question for you. Just on, the field house got approved last fall's town meeting. Have bids come in for that yet? And if they have, what are they looking like against the three?
Bids came in. We've awarded the contract. We're going to start that work June 2nd. Hopefully, get in there early. We've been working closely with the athletic director and the superintendent to get in there right after graduation. They came in, and the price came in at $2.6 million to do that work. So that's a good thing. And there's some additional work that we'd like to get done in there that we're going to be prioritizing as to, like, what's the top thing you want to get done. And I'll give you an example. One of them is new backboards for the center court. Another thing is new curtains, the divider curtains that are out there in the field house, the big curtains that they drop.
Yeah.
That's a second thing. A third thing could be, and these aren't in order of what these are just, I'm not ranking them in my top priorities, what I'm saying. The third thing would be scoreboards. What's in there right now is there's a want to try to replace those with something newer, and then a new batting cage. I don't think we're gonna be able to fit all of that stuff in there. We kept it out of the main scope of work, hoping we could add it in. But we might have enough money to do some of those things. We'll just see how the school feels about what's their top priority, because we only have a certain amount of money to deal with.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, good news.
Any other questions on Article?
I did have one other follow-up. Sorry, Joe.
Go for it, Ed.
I know you were looking to get this thing done quickly. So Sharon, just, I know we went over this in last meeting, but most of the things that you, that are, kind of negatives for FY '27, those were most of those were just things that we were able to kind of push out, or if we figured out where you actually have it denoted, where we were able to kind of pay out of the revolving fund, correct?
Yeah, there was definitely some things that were coming out of the school lunch revolving fund. There was like a school lunch ban, and then I think 2 lunch service lines came off of the roll. I can't see fiscal 27. Can you scroll down a little bit? Yeah. Just to remind me of what it is. Yeah, we had the Birch Meadow food service lines, the Barrow food service lines, and the food service ban. All of those are coming out of a school lunch revolving fund instead of part of our capital in the general fund. And then other things had to be pushed out to make room for other things. So it's been challenging because nothing has calmed down yet with pricing. Everything's priced outrageously. So I don't know if it ever will return to what we used to, but
We can hope.
sometimes when we're trying to make this balance, I have to push things out, not because we don't want them, but because we can't afford them in our 5%.
And so, thank you for that. And then, I again, just want to, thank you for adding the color on those as far as, that, whether they're pushed out or kind of paid from another thing. I think that's very helpful. Going forward, if we could, I think that might also be helpful. I mean, I know you kind of go through it when you talk about it at town meeting, but having some of that detail for the things that we're adding in, I think would be helpful as well.
Okay, great.
I'll second that feedback about actually having the, I don't think in past years we had the how far out things were being pushed in the warrant report here. I could scroll to the very end and find the capital improvement plan and find it there, but it's much easier to be able to see right here. Okay, so we have to push that truck back 1 year, we have to push this other truck back 2 years, that kind of thing. So thank you.
Yeah. Okay, great.
All right.
1 to 5.
On to 5.
Article 5 is again an article that we see every year. This year we'll be amending the FY '25 budget. So in the background, you have several things listed for amendments. Sharon had put together this list with department heads. So I won't read it to you because it's right there, but if you have questions, Sharon or I could answer them for you.
There's a lot going on here. Go ahead, Jeffrey.
So Sharon, when we talked about Article 4, you were saying that the increases in capital were offset by the decreases in debt because we weren't taking out any debt for the Haven Street. So I see line C99 where we have an increase for the capital that we just looked at in Article 4. I don't see, am I not expected to see the decrease due to us not having that extra debt service?
Oh, so there's, I think that service that we scheduled for pickleball that took the difference there. If we were to move forward with pickleball, I believe that might be the issue there.
Okay.
I'd have to pull up the debt schedule to say for sure, but you're saying I'm not reducing debt, but actually I think it's just that the 143, I think we reduced the fiscal 25 at November town meeting, so the debt's already kind of all set there. We just moved some things around, so the 143 wouldn't be affecting the capital, the debt plan, but the fiscal 26 would. This would have been things that we just moved around, because we originally had that elevator for the fire, Main Street fire in fiscal 26, and then we were told to put it back to 27. And we moved him, or I think we were putting him 25, and then we moved it to 27, and now we're moving it back in. So I believe in fiscal 25, the issue is that we had to reprioritize what we had for fiscal 25 because we had some things that shot up on the priority list, and we had to reallocate. In fiscal 26, it's definitely that the debt goes, the debt service changes, and we have to add more capital.
Mark, I see you on Zoom.
Yeah, Sharon, a question on benefits. You've got disability retirement salary moved to benefits, 104,000. So if that was moved to there, was salaries reduced by 104,000?
So no, what that is when we have somebody who's seeking disability retirement, we move at April town meeting at the year that they're about to go out. They're not approved for disability retirement, but we're fairly certain they're going to go out on disability retirement. We'll move their salary out of the department they work in and into the benefits line. So we have to increase the benefits line to do that, but it allows them to speed up the rehiring of that person because they're missing a person and that person's still being charged to their budget. And so this gives them a little bit more leeway to be able to start that hiring process because they know that person's applied for a disability retirement is not coming back, but they're still being paid out of their, their budget. And so this moves it to a benefit line item. And we don't usually have funding in that line item, so I have to fund the line item to move it so they can do a hire.
So that's your estimate until that person's retired?
That's my estimate of what that person makes in a year. And for this fiscal year, I'm going to move his whole wage because I'm expecting that by July, he should be fully disabled on the retirement disability.
Makes sense. Joe?
Sharon, for the fire vacation buyouts, is that related to not to pick on them, but the chief's retirement? Or are there other people?
There's 5 or 6 retirements in fire this year, and we never budget for buyout of people's vacation time because that would mean that we couldn't do something else. We don't have access really built into our budget. So as vacation buyouts happen, we ask for them in April. So that would be the total for, I think, 5 to 6 people, including Greg Burns, but there would be 5 or 6 people that are retiring in this fiscal year.
Okay, thanks.
Looking around further.
I will say that I tried to save some of the money by looking for savings that we had because there was just so much just coming. It adds up. I mean, and then I looked at everything. I'm like, is there anything we can cut? Everything's pretty important. It's unfortunate. It all adds up. And snow and ice was the biggest ad that we had that we didn't have last year is requesting money for snow and ice. We didn't have to ask for that kind of money last year.
Actually, on that note, Sharon, do we have, obviously it varies wildly and it was very low last year, but do we have a typical number for that we usually see? I'm just curious if this is, in line with normal.
Yeah, the snow and ice, we tend to be in a kind of, it's not usually budgeted at what it would be for a normal winter necessarily. But the way it works is snow and ice, whatever you budgeted for in the prior year, you have to stay at least at that number. So you don't want to go too high with the number. So our number is kind of in the middle of the range, and so it tends to cover us fairly well for a good winter. But then a typical New England winter, not so much. And we are kind of used to bringing these sorts of things in April. But if we were to give the number, like we saw on average, it's 800,000 or 700,000 or whatever it is, that would squeeze out other things and we'd be required to be at that 700,000 every year. Yep. The other thing I should mention is snow and ice is the one legal deficit that we can have. So we don't necessarily have to do this, but then I'd end up having to raise it on the recap, which is just, it's kind of the same exercise. So you're taking it from free cash, or you're raising it from your taxes and trying to increase your revenues to cover it. So it's easier this way, and this is the way we've been doing it.
I was just curious. I certainly remember this ritual every year and have heard, Bob Fidel, and we'll now hear Matt give this. Actually, I think I've already heard Matt give this spiel once of the bit about how this is the one thing that we deficit spend every year because of the laws around it. I was just curious in terms of magnitude how big this deficit was compared to usual, but I can look at the old budgets.
Last year, I think we asked for 25,000.
Yeah, that was-
I think
that
though
was
in a
awesome.
normal, a traditional winter, 275 to 325 might be the ask, because like I said, the number that we have is kind of, I'd say for a fairly medium mild winter, but if we get, slammed with snow, it's not enough.
Last year now, I'm trying to take some comfort in the idea that last year notwithstanding, this is normally what happens. And so
Yes.
this is not worse than that, at least. All right. Other comments or questions on Article 5? Nope. All right.
Okay, so Article 6 is prior year's bills. We don't have any right now. I don't anticipate we will before town meeting, but we keep it on there, and if there's no prior year bills, we just table this item. So nothing really to discuss in Article 6 tonight. Article 7 is the standard OPEB article that we do every year. I can defer to Sharon on that because she puts together the OPEB numbers, but it's a standard article that we do every year.
Yeah, so when we built our budget, we have budgeted numbers in the general fund and the enterprise funds for their contribution to the OPEB trust fund. But we have a practice of using it kind of as a hedge, and we don't move the money to the trust fund until April in case, we want to use some of it towards any deficits we might have in health insurance. I think we already had taken a piece of this out when we were building the budget for fiscal 25. So instead of 500,000, we only had 300,000 for the general fund, and then the enterprise funds stayed the same. So it's a smaller transfer than what we've done in years where these issues with health insurance hadn't been the case, but we are still contributing, which is good. And we don't want to not contribute anything, which is why I didn't bring it down to zero and leave to help with the health insurance. We'd already taken a chunk when we realized it was 5.65% increase, and we had like 5.5 or whatever it was. I took a couple $100,000 at that point because we usually have 500,000. So 300,000 is where we're at, I believe. I'm sorry, is it transfers of 200,000? Sorry, we took 300,000 out in the beginning when we were building the budget, and we got our rate a little higher than what we had hoped. We had taken 300,000, so I correct myself. It's 200,000 for the general fund, 85,000 for water, 25,000 for sewer, and 10,005 for the stormwater fund.
Looking around for questions? No? All right, let's continue.
Okay, Article 8 is another standard article that we do every year. It's to approve the revolving funds, and they're all listed under Article 7 in the background. In terms of the inspection revolving fund, we always have a few coming off and a few coming on, so you see the crossouts of the ones coming off and one coming on into that fund. The big difference this year is we're adding a new revolving fund for Elder and Human Services. And that was requested by Jenna and her team. I think she's on the Zoom if there's specific questions about it tonight, but that's going to greatly help the Senior Center Elder Services to have that revolving fund to keep that money going and spending it on equipment, things that they need on a yearly basis. So that's really the big change in Article 8.
Marianne.
Yeah, so further to that, Elder and Human Services Revolving Fund, I mean, it says it'll be funded by user and rental fees from the Elder and Human Services programming. how do we know what that's gonna be? Because hasn't that been ARPA funded and basically free for the past few years? Like, what do we typically expect to come in from user and rental fees?
I think so, I think recently APA, but before that, there were user and rental fees. I don't know, Jenna, if you're on, do you have a sense of what those fees could generate every year?
She's on. Go ahead.
Hi, I was trying to start my camera, but it's not working for some reason, so sorry.
That's okay.
We don't have the exact number of what those fees will be. Obviously, we're seeing record numbers at the center right now, but yes, all of our programs right now are completely funded by ARPA, so it would be hard to predict, even given like the numbers before when people were coming to the center and being charged. It would just be hard to gauge that without just diving in and seeing how it went the first year or two. So I think the expendable amount that we agree on as a team will be relatively reasonable, and we hope to, within the first year, take those funds and ask for more moving forward if need be. But this will be a great resource. Prior to COVID, the participants were actually paying the vendors directly as well, which a lot of other centers were also doing. But obviously we know that that is not a best practice. So we would really love this fund to be able to grow our finances. We only have a $50,000 expense budget right now. It went up a little bit. It'll be going up a little bit in FY26, but this will just tremendously help us continue to grow and have a sustainable fund.
No, I appreciate that. It's just that if you're seeing record attendance, do you think some of it is in part because it's free? And do you think that if you start charging, you're gonna get the same attendance, or is it just nominal fees, you know, $5 for a lunch or $3 or?
Yes, it'll still be, we're hoping to just ease our way in, right? So nominal fees for lunches or for transportation. We have discussed also charging our non-residents starting in the new fiscal year, since we'll have this fund. So it'll still stay the nominal fees that they were before. So we expect that people would still come, but I can't guarantee what the numbers will be when people start getting charged. It could go down. It could stay the same. I really can't predict. And then if Recal passes and we have a new building in the future, it could double or triple. So I don't have the crystal ball.
Yeah,
but
like as an example, right? You guys are you in charge of Matera Cabin? Like who? Like people regularly rent that, and that's its own revolving account.
So we do rent the Matera Cabin. Recreation actually used to be in charge of the Matera Cabin, but now it's under conservation. And right now we do charge rental fees for the Pleasant Street Center, and that goes into the Elder and Human Services Fund and into the general fund, and we deposit that through community services.
Okay, so that was what I was kind of getting to, like, so renting the Pleasant Street Center, I don't know how many people rent it other than for elder events, but that's another source. All right, thank you.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do get quite a few rentals in there a month, so.
Can I just clarify that this revolving fund is kind of just kind of a mechanism to pay those vendors who are doing the programming. So let's say they're doing a yoga class, you know, the attendees come and they bring, you know, their fee that they're going to pay for it. And this allows us to pay that vendor from this fund. Prior, we would have had to record the money coming in as revenue and have a budget in that Elder and Human Services area for expenses, which we don't have a big budget for. So this kind of allows them to do programming above and beyond kind of what we have a budget for, because they're, you know, pay as you go kind of things, and they're just flowing through this revolving fund where we're doing a program, people pay, and that's what we use to pay the vendor.
Yeah, and Recreation also has a similar fund for their programming.
Joe.
Sure. Might be a question for Sharon. On the inspection revolving fund, it's the largest or tied for the largest fund, but it still seems like vague how that money can be expensed, or used, like if you look at the allowed expenses, like it covers a lot, like even at the bottom of the description, like records archiving, other project-related costs. Like how do we, I don't know, like how do we manage
So-
all that, yeah.
The inspection revolving fund is used to cover some of the wages of the people who are monitoring those larger projects within public services. You know, so when the inspections and all of that stuff, some of that stuff is being charged, or support is coming from this revolving fund to help pay some of their salaries to, keep that program, keep those larger developments monitored. And so the inspection and revolving fund does highlight the specific projects that are big enough where their fees go in there, and that's where we pay the expenses related to that project. But there are some supports that are just built into our budget coming from this revolving fund to help pay for the staff that we have that does help with the monitoring.
So it's only used like for, I guess, new projects or
Big projects
general
tends to be bigger
costs like
projects that could be
okay.
problematic if, to the public if they weren't doing the right things. So they would definitely want to make sure that they're abiding by all the zoning bylaws and all those things.
Okay.
All of the things that are required of them, that monitoring would be done by either staff or consultants that we hire, and that's what that money is for. I do think that we have, for the last several years, funded the economic development person out of here, because that was how we started with that position. It's always been funded from here, but the rest of the support really is for people directly involved with the monitoring.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions about the revolving funds? No? All right, let's continue.
Okay, so on to Articles 9 and 10, because they're related. And these articles, I don't think legally you have to vote on, but I wanted to bring them to your attention because they are, somewhat financial. So they deal with the town's acceptance of certain clauses of what's known as the HERO Act, which helps serve our veterans and armed service people. And it contains two property tax exemptions. One is essentially a COLA on property tax exemption that veterans already get, and one is a new exemption. And the language it gets a little technical. It's laid out in the background. At town meeting, I'll have the assessor there as well in case there are any questions. But it was recently made available to us to accept these acts. And we thought it was a good thing to do for our veterans to just give them a little bit extra help with tax bills and whatnot. So that's the big picture on there. Any questions?
Okay, I guess
Probably ask the same
I
thing.
guess I had my own, I'll call myself because I had my hand up first.
Okay.
Sharon, I assume this is like similar, abatements and tax reliefs where the levy size remains the same for a given year. This effectively moves it around and in this case moves it off of some of our veterans. But is that
Yeah, it's kind of like taking and giving them, I believe this one is this the one where they double the exemption for them? It comes
Yes.
out of our abatements. And so we have allowance for abatements, and that rolls from year to year. And so we have sufficient balance to be able to cover this without too much issue. I think the only thing we ended up needing to do was, I think if you noticed on Article 5, there was building a bridge for Munis to pull this into Munis. Like they're going to have to do a little bit of work to have that information related to these exemptions pulled into the Munis for the real estate tax. So they're going to need to make some modifications and build a bridge to pull it all in. Other than that, I feel like our level of abatements that we budget for is still going to be sufficient.
All right, Joe.
No, it was answered. Yep.
Oh, okay.
So,
I'm looking around, I don't see any other hands on that,
Okay.
so second half here.
All right, yeah, maybe this, Article 11 is the budget.
Wait, did you do 10?
Yeah, oh, so that's what I'd done them both
sorry.
together, but 10 is a new abatement, and 9 was the COLA. So, like I said, they're related.
Okay.
According to town council, it's cleaner to do it in 2 separate articles rather than one, so that's the way we broke it up.
So Article 10 is a one-time increase in the size of the abatement, and then Article 9 is a provision that would cause the abatement to increase every year.
Yeah, that's the COLA
That
increase.
makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Article 11 obviously is adoption of the budget, which I know that you've heard the last meeting and we'll vote on tonight. Article 13 is the next one requiring your vote, and that's the funding for the High Haven Street project. And we had this on in prior years and asked for some borrowing to help with this project. We decided, given the financial state and the other projects going on, that we wouldn't ask for the borrowing. So we've got a $2.6 million MassWorks grant to cover the bulk of this. And we've identified other funding sources that are laid out in the report that we have under our control that could only be used for special purposes to make up the remainder. So it's going to be mostly High Street, a little bit of Haven Street. There's some maps in there. Ryan, our engineer, had explained it to the select board at one of the recent select board meetings. So we still think it's an important project, and I agree that we shouldn't go out to borrow for it, but we have the funding available in-house and with the grant. And if we don't do the project or we don't match the funds, we would lose that grant. So that's quite a bit of money off the table. And I think we've already spent something like $700,000 in just design and planning already, from prior funding. So 750, I think, town meeting voted for. So that's that project. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer. Town engineer will be at town meeting as well to explain it fully. Yes.
Do we have a map somewhere of what the improvements are actually going to be instead of just?
Yeah, I mean, we have a small map in, that tells us the streets.
So like,
In there, we had something more expansive when we were going to borrow for it, but I can talk to the town engineer and get you what we have. I couldn't call it up right tonight, but there is a better map than just what you see in the background.
at least for town meeting, I think.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's a good idea.
Great question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful for town meeting.
Okay. Yep.
Ma'am?
So I see you're using certain other sources to kind of make up for the other $1.4 million or something like that.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
So what other things could these other funds be used for other than this project that would be important? I mean, sustainability account, 400K, could that be used anywhere in town or only downtown? I mean, this is.
From what I understand, that could be used for, to sustain long-term environmental, social, and economic improvement projects. So
That sounds like it could be, you could spin anything to be that.
possibly, but I mean, you have within reason, but yeah, it's a little more wide open. The smart growth money, these could be used for capital expenditures, and should focus on the smart growth district that we have. And then the other funds.
What is the West Street TIP project?
So West Street road improvements, funds must be transferred to a like project, i.e. road improvement. So it's a road improvement project, and we're transferring it here because it's a like project. I don't know what was planned for West Street at the time, or if it's done and this is
Could it have
excess.
been done to fix any other roads in
Done.
town?
It's done, so it's done, yeah.
I lived there when they did this. It was
You lived on West Street?
I lived on West Street during this. The
Okay.
town actually,
remember when we
gave me a
did
little
some
bit of
of
money for an easement for the first few feet of my yard because they ripped out all the sidewalks. They ripped the road down to the dirt, regraded it. It was
It's fun.
it was really cool watching a 70,000 pound machine drive down right in front of my house and pounding the ground flat.
I'm not
but anyway, that was a
disputing
few
it,
years
I'm
ago.
just saying
And,
there's a
Yeah.
lot of probably roads in town. that could really use that money too, right? I mean, I just think that as much as we have a grant that we don't want to give up, some of this money could also be used for other projects in town too. This isn't the only thing that these funds have to be allocated for. I just wanted to
Fair enough.
be clear.
Sharon, is there a certain amount of time though that these funds have to be used by?
We are supposed to spend them on a certain timeline, but I believe West Street had some state funding attached to it there was some holdup with that project, so that extended out the timeline of the project. But it's in our best interest to do something with it sooner rather than later, because we're not supposed to leave borrowed funds sitting in a capital project or unneeded. We usually transfer them to a light project, and that's what's being done here.
And is it a 2-year period, is that right?
I think it's like, depends on the size of the project, but yeah, I would say 2 years is probably the max, I would think, on a project like that.
A couple observations from me here. First, like everything else, road improvements don't get cheaper over time, so there's another reason to use it. In terms of everything could be twisted as sustainability, that's true, but I think train station walkability is not a twist. That's pretty direct. Encouraging the use of mass transit instead of driving is pretty darn good from a sustainability point of view.
I guess I just look at okay, Linden Street and Sanborn Street, what's wrong with those streets right now? I don't know what.
They're out of front. They're out of scope now. So.
Oh, okay, you're out of scope.
And full disclosure, I live awfully close to this, but and use the train to get to work. So my personal stake in all of this, but boy, howdy, High Street is a disaster area there.
And
it's like gravel at this point.
the southern tip of the scope, I think, is where a kid got hit by a car last year,
Yes.
where there's no crosswalks or
Yes,
trusses or
Oh, I
anything,
thought it
but
was
that's
on.
certainly a
I thought it was on Lincoln.
use.
No, it was at High in Washington.
Yeah.
Like.
Okay, I was just thinking with the two other projects that are coming on, if there's any road improvements that could be associated with Killam or Recal over there, maybe it's built into the project. I just didn't know that also could be used, but I appreciate that there's a grant here.
Yeah.
Joe, I think you had a hand, and then I'm.
No, I'm good.
Jane? Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to add a little color to this. I was talking to the engineer on this article today. Yeah, I've talked to them at length actually about this. And this is kind of the culmination of about 20 years of work. So all of the utilities in the downtown have been upgraded, every single one. Gas, water, electricity, sewer. And that's going to cause damage to the roads. So this project is finishing that work and resurfacing that road. It will include, I think, raising the area at High Street, so there's sort of like a elevated platform, if you will, where Haven and High come together. It could be used for a farmer's market. It could, these are design ideas that were floated previously. So I just wanted to bring that back into the conversation, add a little color.
I shared John's question about, what, because I remember the very detailed plan of the larger project that was previously proposed and things like that raised intersection to slow people down. And as someone who drives through there all the time, because of where I live, it would slow me down. That's probably good. So, yes.
And it was well designed actually with the fire apparatus and, police and fire are very much part of that design process too, so that the apparatus can get around.
I mean, it will make me later to these meetings. That's the road I take.
You tried leaving on time.
No, but I do think, to your point, Joe, I think it would be, and to John's point, I do think it'd be helpful to understand the reduced scale and what that, and revisiting even to the point that you just raised, Jane.
Yeah.
So it's
For
the
town meeting.
green
I think
and the
that would
blue,
be,
or just the green?
helpful.
Looks like
It's the green.
Well, the blue, it says here,
So it's just the green or green and blue?
Not Haven. I don't believe it's Haven. I think it's just
Okay.
High.
Not all of that Haven. There's a little bit of Haven.
They call it Lower Haven, so I guess it's really lower, just at the very
really
end.
lower, yeah.
We'll have some slides at town meeting, like you suggest, to show the differences, and the engineer will be there to answer some questions, any sort of technical questions, but that's the gist of it. We really don't want to lose that MassWorks grant, so. Okay.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, go ahead.
The funds that we're drawing from, is this wiping any, all, some of them out? Or is there still, will there be balance?
Sharon may know better than I. Are there gonna be any balances remaining in these funds once we use them, Sharon? Like smart growth and,
Probably a very small balance, maybe a little remainder because the numbers they use are round, but not a lot would be remaining in any of the funds.
And is there a priority as far as like which ones to draw down, which you have more time on or less time on or flexibility? Is there a pecking order to how to use them?
I think all of them are needed to reach what they need to complete the project, and that's kind of the reason they were selected. Smart growth that can be out there for as long as we want. The West Street, I absolutely would recommend doing the West Street, transferring it to something, and this was a qualifying project. So depending on what kind of fund they're pulling it from, there would be, if it's a borrowing, absolutely, that would be one of our first priorities is to use that on something rather than take smart growth or something else. But they needed all of this to get to the number they needed to complete the project.
And just to kind of a follow-up on that, so typically when, so in those, you kind of intimated to it, I just want to, kind of put a finer point on it. So for any of these, you still have to go through a process to make sure that, that you can reallocate it and, for a specific project and it's applicable and approved before you can actually get to this point, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We have to reach out to council and find out, is this considered a like project? Can we move this funding from this to this? And it has to do with what it would qualify for borrowing terms. It's got to be for equal or greater. This project matches up well with West Street, and so that's why it was selected.
John?
Sure, that smart growth stabilization fund, that regenerates yearly, right? Like we get money from the state for that?
We get money periodically, depending on what we have going on in the smart growth district, if we have projects going on there. So it's not every year, but we do tend to get funds every other year. Or, I usually hear about it through Andrew McNichol. Okay, we've got funding coming in, be on the lookout. And we'd always be looking for it because prior to the vote we took last town meeting, we actually had to take a vote to actually put it into the stabilization fund. It would come in as general fund revenue, and we end up having to move it to the smart growth stabilization fund. So now we won't need to do that. But it's one of those things that does come in periodically. I wouldn't say every year, but maybe every other year I see money coming in.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have an observation because I zoomed in on the one image that we have, and it does actually look like the phase 2 project limit includes the blue, and the significance of the green is that that's specifically the scope of the MassWorks the MassWorks grant is targeting. Am I reading that diagram? I'm sure it's an eye test for you too on your printout, but
it's hard to tell.
in fact, I've got this is a PDF. There you go. Thank you, Jackie. That's awesome.
MassWorks project
Which is the
limit
best in the business.
MassWorks project limit is the green.
And then phase 2. I think this is all phase 2, or is this because it says reduced scope from phase 2, or is this actually just phase 1? That part.
I think, it looks
This is
like more
just-
phase 1.
Oh, so maybe this is phase
what are we
1
doing?
equals MassWorks equals what we're doing.
We don't know what we're doing and we're voting on it.
I'm trying to fix that.
It says this project would focus on Haven Street, Gould Street to High Street, and High Street corridors. The area corresponds with the green designated in image below. That's what the background says in the article, so it's green.
Okay, so maybe
So that's High Street.
all right.
And then
So-
a little bit of, I think there's a little bit of.
That little wing that goes towards.
That
no,
green, a little bit of Haven Street that's in green, I think that's
Yeah.
what it looks like, yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
The former Pamplemousse. Gould
I think the
Street
blue was
doesn't
cut from the project,
Yeah,
and
the
the green
blue
and
is-
okay.
the pink
Blue
are.
is no longer, yeah.
Okay, so blue
Yeah.
is definitely out of scope. That's there wasn't.
So I'd focus on the green for this project.
Might want a different visualization that just,
Yeah, just color in what we're doing. It's just
Okay.
gonna confuse people.
Yeah, no, we will. That's a
Yeah,
good
I mean-
suggestion.
Yeah, or keep this and then just have another one that just focuses on what's in scope.
Okay.
And not to be a wise guy, Matt, but maybe have someone explain why it's still 4 million.
Why, it's still 4 million?
Yeah, because it looks like a lot of scope's been taken out,
Oh,
so.
why does it still cost that much? Yeah, sure, yeah, no, we can, I mean, things have gone up too, but, obviously, but I can explain why.
the intersections are all, or the big intersections are all still in scope. I'm guessing that's part of the answer.
And wasn't this originally like a $7 or $8 million?
It was gonna be more with the borrowing, and then there was also, we were looking at a federal grant that never really materialized either, so.
So this was like 7.5 or.
It was more.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I
So
voted
this is-
against it when it was that.
Yeah, it was a more expensive project.
No, I mean, if it's a roughly half the scope and half the cost, that
Yeah,
And the
adds up for
select
me.
board did not support when it was 7 million before.
that's correct, yeah, but they did support this.
Yes, yeah, it's not coincidentally, it didn't come to town meeting at that price.
No, yeah, we pulled it at that time.
Yeah,
Yep,
that was I agree with that as well.
yep.
And now,
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Okay, so Article 14 is the borrowing for pickleball. There's a quite a lengthy background in there, and I think people follow this issue pretty closely. What it now is a $1.6 million borrowing. There's other funds that have been identified in terms of donations, recreation, capital projects, possibly some money from the Burbank Trust Fund. So I know we discussed it a little bit last meeting. Jane and her team have worked on this quite a bit, and she's here tonight, and I would maybe defer to her for any specific questions, as she's working on this every day with Jenna and Jim and everybody else, so.
Happy to answer any questions. Just for clarification purposes, in the background, you'll see that the most recent cost estimate is listed as 1.792 million. Just for orientation, Birch Meadow Phase 1 was 2.7 million, Birch Meadow Phase 2 was 2.14 million. Staff is fairly confident we can bid this for 1.5. So that is what we're thinking we're going to bring to town meeting is 1.5. And then with the mix of funding that we have, 200 raised by RPPA, 100,000 from Recreation Capital, and then 200,000 from the Burbank Arena. So that's what we're looking at right now. Happy to answer any questions or take you through what that estimate is covering.
So would we still have it at 1.792 or is that going to adjust down to 1.5?
We think we can probably get what we want for about 1.5.
Well,
So
we'll
the cost
authorize-
estimate, though,
Is for 1.792.
that's correct.
Gotcha, okay. Yep.
That is what
So this could
our,
be the potential Parker roof that we keep on dipping into afterwards.
I have no comment about Parker. No, we would ask town meeting for 1.5. And it would be that would be the full project budget, but then, we would, when we go out to bid, if we need to, we would reduce the project. But we would bring it in at 1.5.
And Jay, but reduce the 1.5 by the 500,000 that's listed here. So it'd really be $1 million.
So the borrowing would be, depending what the bid comes in as, it could be less, but yeah, the
But just say it comes in at $1.5 million, it'd
Yep.
really just be $1 million of borrowing.
that's correct.
just as a preliminary matter, it would be really helpful if there was a breakdown of costs with what each part costs, because if town meeting sees this and says, well, we don't want to support 7 courts, but we'll support 4 courts, like to kind of understand is this, what percentage is this, what is the site work, what is the design fee this company's getting? Because I'm still shocked by the number. I mean, you pointed out Birch Meadow Phase 2 cost 2.7, but if you'll recall, it was originally budgeted for 1.5, and then due to I think the article I just read referred to raging inflation, between 2022 and 2023, we had to come back to town meeting for more money.
That's true.
And I could totally see that happening with this project, that this could turn into a, another almost doubling. So a cost breakdown, I think, would be helpful
I can do that.
to understand, because I guess the select board probably raised a lot of concerns that I had with just, courts elsewhere. Do we have any backup plan on doing this at a lower cost? Are we absolutely only gonna do it with post-tension concrete and not asphalt?
Yeah, and I'm happy to get into that with you.
I know, we never got any second opinions on we could do this for less, because like.
So there are two opinions. All of our cost estimates are run by two parties and they are reconciled. And then they're reviewed, in this case, they're reviewed by Activitas, they're reviewed by the architectural firm, and then internally by town staff. So that's how we moved that number down. And we've been very transparent with sort of, here's what we got first, and then as we moved it down. So there are multiple opinions in this for sure. It's not just one cost estimator with that information, right? We don't do that with any project. Recal and Killam both have two cost estimators, and then they're reconciled. They come together and reconcile it. So let me take you a little bit through construction costs, how that cost breaks down, and we'll include this is very helpful to us in what kind of additional information.
Yeah, because town meeting's gonna ask.
You're absolutely right, yeah, and I'm grateful for that. So construction costs are estimated at 1.5. The accessible path and driveway to the Burbank parking is about 31,000 in the cost estimate. Permits and approvals are, some of them are included, plumbing, mechanical, gas, those kinds of things, and then another 2,000 for peer review fees for planning for CPDC. Design fees are 90,000. Testing and inspections, that's testing the concrete and all those pieces, is estimated at 10,000. Advertising and bidding is estimated at 3,500. Legal fee allowance is 1,500. So the soft costs are at 107,000, and then we would be carrying a 9% contingency at 148,000. So that's what gets you that 1.792. We feel, as we go forward, the nature of the geology at the site is what's driving the post-tension concrete. Asphalt, so we're digging out fresh land here. So Weston has a project that's very similar to what our project is. It is not an existing field. It is not hard packed. There are no catch basins or any drainage that is on site. So that all has to be built and contained. All stormwater must be contained on site, as you know. So that all has to be built, and that's part of the site work that isn't seen, isn't particularly interesting, but it has to be there, and it is part of the project. And that is, it's not feasible to say, let's put straight asphalt down. And we've gone over this and had many, many conversations with our designer, BH+A, but also Activitas. And I think Mark Novak from Activitas explained a little bit about what the nature of asphalt is in today's world. We talked to a community on the Cape, and it's escaping me which one we spoke with. They built similar courts. They did all asphalt, and they had to resurface the whole courts within 5 years. So we anticipate that post-tension concrete has a better life cycle cost, and we would expect to not have to do that kind of level of maintenance. It would basically just be repainting and those top coat factors. It's effectively building a parking lot, a parking deck out there. It's not going to move. And that's important because it will enable these courts to be used for a long, long time without creating a maintenance headache. So the upfront costs are more substantial than paving asphalt courts on an existing field, but it will create what we believe is a very responsible, use of taxpayer dollars to build a recreational facility that will stand the test of time.
No, can I just ask?
Yeah.
I know Wilmington Senior Center put 4 pickleball courts. And I know there's a high demand here, but if it becomes to be not all or nothing, like, well, the town, town meeting wouldn't support 7, but maybe would support a smaller amount. Do you have a scaling cost or anything like that?
Yeah,
To say what we would support? Because I'd rather see them get something than nothing,
Agreed.
I guess.
100%. What we would do, what we estimate is that reducing by 1 court would be about 110,000. So per court, that's the number that they've given us.
Yeah, I remember 194 below, so how come it went down?
Because we took out underground supports we don't feel we need.
Okay.
Below the post-tension concrete, we said we don't feel we need that. But, so that's part of why that cost came down. Plus, in that initial estimate, that was estimated with the idea that GC would be managing the whole project, right? The 2 projects together, and so that creates a markup. We took that away. This would not be managed by a GC, it would be independent, and that brings us down about 300,000, actually. So,
That's good to know.
so we estimate about 110,000 per court. What we would do with this plan is we would go to Activitas and our designer, and we would say, we want you to do a base bid that's maybe 5 or 6 courts, and then an alternate and an alternate. And so we would bid the alternates, so that if, depending on what the alternates come in as, we could go all the way to that 7 courts and the lights, but we would bid it in such a way that it would give us more bang for all of the options that we need to, so we don't have to go back and rebid.
So my last question, and I promise this is last because others have it, we can't frame this as like a not to exceed cost, or will there be some maximum on this if town meeting approves this? Do they know that we're not gonna approve borrowing more than some kind of amount?
If town meeting approves 1.5, it's 1.5.
So they won't borrow more than that, or they'd have to come back and ask.
You would have to come back,
That's what we're-
yeah. But it's our intention, and we've been transparent through this process. We are very aware that our PPA is they really wanted 8 courts, and we could not make it fit within the buffer zone and working with conservation. And we've really run it through a lot of peer review internally. All the different departments have been great. So we're really at that 7 court, we think we can fit that. But yeah, I mean, if we can't do it, we can't do it, but staff is fairly confident that 1.5 will work. I'm fairly confident that we can do this for 1.5. So we think we'll be in a favorable bidding environment when we bring this forward. We want to do it, and we are carrying a fair contingency because we don't know kind of what's going to happen in the world right now. So yeah.
I see Mark on Zoom.
Yeah, Jane, I would also suggest looking at, I did ask Joe about the field house. And if that's under by 400,000, if there's any of that money that could go towards this, and then if there's any other bids that have come in under, I don't think the trash cans or anything, I don't think that came in under, but just, if there's 400,000 available related to field house, can any of that be used here?
I don't know if that would probably have to ask town meeting to move that. I would defer to our CFO for a question like that. It would be our hope that the same idea. Our cost estimators are giving us conservative estimates so that we don't have to come back to town meeting. But, we think that we can probably bring it in at that number. Okay.
So if there was savings, let's say from the field house floor and bleachers from what we borrowed and what it actually cost, we could go to town meeting and ask them to transfer that funding to another project. But where we already do have a bid that's lower than the 3 million, we're probably not going to borrow 3 million. So there won't be a lot of extra. It doesn't seem, unless we're adding in some of the things that Joe had mentioned. But if there is extra, we do tend to go take it to town meeting and have it moved to another project.
Well, I actually have a follow-on question to that. I did see your hand in. Because we love rating the leftovers from previous projects because we hit free cash hard enough, obviously already, and any alternative is good. So, but my understanding of that was that the project had to probably be more or less concluded before we started redistributing its funds, I would think.
Yes, it has to be a completed project, absolutely.
So we can't. So next month we can't go giving out the fieldhouse floors money yet. not
No.
April.
No.
We're not gonna start it till school gets out, right?
Yeah, so what-
Right, exactly. That's my point. Is it so? Ask that, Mark, ask that question again. In a year or two.
So if we borrow less, I can modify our debt plan, and that might make more capital money available. Because I actually have pickleball on my debt schedule for $1.65 million borrowing. Because the numbers have changed a few times since we got our original conversation with them. So I have a high number. So if there is a borrowing that ends up being less than what I have there, when I make that modification at a future town meeting, there would be room for additional capital or debt.
Ed?
So Jim, what's the timing, like when ideal time to start, when ideal time to, given approvals and so forth, like what's the whole schedule look like? And then I'm hesitant to ask another question, but I'll start with that one.
That's a good question. I think that we will we'll move into design development, and then, so that's the next phase. It gets you to 50% design, and we'll just keep on going. I don't think we'll be ready to bid the project until probably late fall, early winter time, but it wouldn't start till the spring.
Given that answer.
That's my guess.
No, yeah, no,
early than
that's
that.
helpful. And again, so I guess so some of these things, these numbers are still fungible, for lack of a better term, as far as like they're in a range. Is there a reason why to bring it now versus in the next, so if we're not looking at this from, kind of from a timing perspective, does it make sense to table and then wait a little bit longer, so you have more, clarity if it's not going to hurt the timeline as far as when you are going to start it? I'm just kind of curious as far as, is there a sense of urgency to do it now for things that I'm not grasping, kind of project-wise?
So that's another good question we thought about. Do we want to wait until the fall? Part of the appetite to go forward now is depending on how the design work comes, it could be faster. And so it depends on what's the borrowing environment that Sharon will be in, and will that be favorable to include this borrowing with other tranches of borrowing to obtain a more favorable rate, and then escalation. So there's escalation in all of our projects, and so $1 today is worth less tomorrow. So we know what it costs right now. So that's kind of
And
why
the
we're
reason
here.
for I'm asking is whatever answer is the better answer to do it is what I'm angling for. So, I'm not trying to have it be a gotcha, is that if it makes sense to say, hey, the reason why we're doing this now is for X, Y, and Z reasons, then we should be communicating that, as far as for advocating to be able to do it. Because if it's, I'm from being in hearing these for a while, when there's a little bit more, things are a little bit more vague, you got to give a reason why it's vague. You know what I mean? And And I think as you're talking to town meeting, you know this too. But and having a huge appreciation and for the Reading pickleball community, because it's been something we've talked about for a while. We're getting closer, and it's and if we're at that tipping point, then let's make sure that we're there.
Well, part of the reason that we brought it forward now is originally there were pickleball courts included in the Birch Meadow Phase 2 project, right? And so that was approved a while back, and that's getting ready to move forward in the next few months. So those were taken out because of the noise. And, Reading pickleball worked well with the town, and the residents say this is not the place. And we do get complaints about the Memorial Court space. So, we have a robust pickleball community of all ages, and we want them to be able to play and enjoy the play and grow the people that are using it, but then also, respect our resident requirements and their desire for peace in their homes.
No argument from me
So-
there at all.
Yeah, so that's why. So because it was, we took it out of that Birch Meadow Phase 2, and then as we've moved forward on the Simon's Way, master plan for that area, that's why we're kind of here.
Again, I think that would be helpful.
Sure,
I mean,
I think
like,
that's
all of that is helpful, like,
Okay.
people have short memories, and so I think, kind of going through that and as it's presented to town meeting, I think will be beneficial. But just, again, sometimes you just want to know what's changed, you know what I mean? And but reminding them of the trials and tribulations through this, I think is helpful. And again, because it is something where I remember, and I don't know if it was last year or the year before, we talked about self-funding. That's been knocked out of the park. I mean, so I think all of these types of things that, there's a lot of progress that's been made. So I think, being able to, kind of communicate to that, I think will be helpful and put it in the best way.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I see Sharon's hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that we have the debt exclusions in May, and if they both pass, I would probably be borrowing within, 5 weeks, and so I could borrow for pickleball then, and that was part of the decision to put it on this April, if we're going to be borrowing, because we tend to not borrow for one small project. We tend to look to borrow more than one because there's significant cost in issuing debt, and so we try and time it out so that all of our projects are kind of needing money at about the same time, so that we don't have to issue debt more than once in a year or just issue for one small debt. And so that was part of the decision making that made it maybe we should move it for April, because also with every project, you want to time it so that it's not winter conditions when you're starting some of this stuff. And so if we were borrowing as soon as possible for Killam, if this project needed to proceed, we could do that.
Perfect. That's helpful.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. So Sharon, to that point though, say if it ends up being $1 million, how far out would we go? Like the 15 or 20 years then on that 1 million?
Like 10 years.
I think I have that as a 10-year borrowing on my debt schedule, if I remember correctly. For pickleball, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah, I think I spread it out for 10 years to make it a little bit more affordable each year. I think originally I had it 7 years when we thought that the number was going to be lower, and then I pushed it up to 10.
got it. Okay. All right. Thanks.
Emily.
I have a lot of thoughts about pickleball. Having talked with them for 8 years in rec about the need and the want, and excited that it feels close, and disappointed, as I'm sure you are, with the big ask. It seems from what you said, Jane, the site work is the driving cost. If ReCal passes, does that change what this means for those courts? So like bringing electricity obviously is going to come with the building, so that's a thing that is not going to be exclusive to this project. Do we have a sense of what that saving would be? Will we, so it sounded to me from Sharon that we're waiting to even authorize debt or borrow until those things are resolved and understood. So will we revisit if we have, ReCal project moving forward? Like, what does that mean for this individual project? Because I think that would be helpful information for town meeting to have, if it's a thing we can know.
I think it's something that we can know. I don't know the specific dollar figure for that. When we decided that we would pursue these as two different pieces, my direction was, I want pickleball to stand on its own 2 feet. I want ReCal to stand on its own 2 feet. Because if one passes and the other doesn't, we have to be prepared for eventuality. So we can get that number for you. It's why we chose the same civil engineering firm, the same architect to do both projects. So you would see a savings in some of the underground site work, right? Some of the stormwater retention. You would see savings a little bit in the electrical. RMLD is a great partner to work with, so we're not seeing that as a huge cost right now. It is a cost, though, to bring electricity to pickleball for lights. But that's not a huge cost. So we would see more parking, you wouldn't have to duplicate some of these pieces. So, there could be a savings, there would be a savings. I'll get for town meeting a specific figure as best I can. Does that make sense?
No competition.
There's no competition.
Yeah, I mean, like if both happen, they're all already kind of situated in ways that it doesn't impede.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, and pickleball could move forward ahead of recal.
Because it's gonna spend a while designing before.
They're
they
gonna,
actually
they're gonna be
break ground.
longer designing, which is why, I mean, my estimate to you is very conservative, Ed, because pickleball is on the, I'm sorry, recal is on the, they would be ready for a bidding environment next, like January, February timeframe. So pickleball would be earlier. So pickleball could go first. The road improvements are not carried in pickleball by itself. There are no road improvements. It'll still be range road, gravel to get to pickleball. If recal passes, there will be a road there, so that's not carried in the pickleball cost. So it'll be a better project as well, should recal pass. But that's a great suggestion, so I will pursue that.
And the special town meeting, the second night?
Yes.
So in theory,
May
we
1st.
should be debating this article after, in
Yeah,
theory,
probably.
after we debate on recal. I know it won't go to the voters until after town meeting is concluded, but at least if we have a sense of town meeting's appetite for the debt for the entire project, I think that would be helpful context information to include if it's something that you can magic some numbers if we want to.
We don't magic numbers, we research numbers and we back them up with data, for sure. Yeah, we will do that.
It's a fancy way of saying it.
That's an interesting, the thought about what comes up one night is something I hadn't thought about. I think 'cause we've been spoiled by some town meetings that ran very smoothly recently, like one night for the budget, one night for everything else. Or, one night for MBTA communities, one night for everything else kind of stuff. So, I guess before I looked at the warrant, I'd assumed it was gonna be everything else, then Killam and Recal, and then the budget the following Monday. There is a lot here, so maybe we don't get through everything else. Then again, hopefully the budget is also not controversial this year, so we could fit, if we don't do everything else, we can still get out in 3, I guess is what I'm saying. That would be nice.
Yeah.
I'm not selling a great town meeting.
I'm wrestling with it out loud here as I'm.
Spring is always
I think there's gonna be,
It
I
is-
think that the Killam and recal are gonna take longer than we think.
15, 20 minutes.
Maybe the public hearing on the second one, but I think it's.
Yeah.
Right, John.
Is the 200K from the Burbank Trust committed to this project, or is there still another level of approval that would need? to go towards this?
I would defer to Sharon for that.
The Burbank fund can be used whatever we want to use it for. It wouldn't be using all of the funds, it would just be using 200,000.
But who decides
Town
what we
meeting.
use it? Town meeting does that?
Yeah.
Town meeting can decide that, yes.
Yeah. So this is us spending the Burbank fund if
Okay.
we spend it.
It's a proposal.
Or us as town meeting, not finance committee.
Sharon, does that need 2/3 approval to use it?
That I don't know. I would think it's majority, but I don't know that for sure, so we could check and find out. It's not borrowing, so I wouldn't think it'd be 2/3, but I'd have to ask.
The borrowing, for sure.
No, that's notable because I'm sure people might, we have certainly seen projects, pass or fail based on whether the funding source required majority versus 2/3.
And people on the floor moving the money around. People on the floor say, oh, we'll make it 300,000 out of Burbank.
Well, if it's all simple majorities, they could do that if they wanted to.
You know what I'm saying? Like, would be prepared for those types of amendments on the floor. Why don't we just do, 300 out of this and and have someone,
See that?
I think to be prepared for all of that, on the floor. Someone asking the question, how much is in the Burbank trust fund?
It's right there.
And then, and then saying, well, why don't we just use all 400?
Okay.
Yeah, no, I've heard rumors of other people wanting other uses for the Burbank Fund, like continuing the inclusive sports and that kind of stuff.
No,
right.
yeah.
if it comes each year, so. I don't think they should rate
So
it
I have a
completely.
couple of questions for you.
Thank you.
So this is one of the articles that I am a pickleball player, but also
We
finance
don't hold that
committee
against,
member.
we don't
so-
hold that against you.
So, question number one, long-term maintenance and operating cost.
Okay.
With this, do we have an estimate? How much,
Some-
who will pay for that, for it?
So it would become part of our operational budget, our capital improvement plan, that it would, like we take care of our other fields and facilities.
Is there any appetite from the nonprofit to pay for some of that cost or?
And they have not indicated that right now. My understanding is they've been working to fundraise for this initial investment. It's our hope that with the post-tension concrete, and I've talked with Jim Sullivan, the recreation director, at length, and it's his wish that if it's asphalt, it's gonna be a headache all the time. It's gonna require a lot more work. It's gonna require resurfacing, and that's going to get more expensive versus the post-tension concrete, which has a 5-year warranty, but has a track record of 20 to 30 years, like well proven everywhere. So, to give you a sense. And also the ball sounds better, according to Joe.
Is that harder on the knees of the pickleball players playing on post-tension concrete versus asphalt, or does it matter? You guys would know.
It depends on the
Mike
player.
has an answer to that.
The concrete is the base layer, and then there's layers on top of that that are the playing surface.
Yeah.
And they're the same.
Oh, so it's still, it's still a hard base under it though, but it doesn't make a
It's a
difference?
pretty hard base that tennis courts and all of them. Same.
So my other comment, and this is putting my finance committee hat on, is obviously the cost for this is extremely high. Well, I think it's extremely high. Do we really need that many? Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But you are also residents of Reading. And one thing that I want to point out is for the next 10 years, we can pay in full all the public safety, police and dispatch capital items with 1.3 million. And you're asking the town to pay, so for the next 10 years, we can actually wipe out the whole capital plan for public safety, all items in there, and that will cost 1.3 million. So just, I wanna point this out just so you can be aware of what you can do with that much money. If the need is there and if it's a community priority, I'm all for it. But also putting my finance committee hat, we look at the capital plan very, very close. We look at the debt borrowing very close. I'm a former treasurer. I know how much money we will be paying per year for that borrowing. So, and then when I look at the public safety and I look at police cars, enforcement vehicles, fire replacement, all of these that are planned for the next 10 years, it costs 1.3 million. So I just point that out because sometimes timing is all it needs. If we can wait a couple of years or even a year and then bulk it with another project like the recalc, maybe it's worth it. But I'm on the fence for this personally. As I said, I love pickleball, but it's just a cost. It's maybe another site, or maybe we invest and we look at another site. I know it's expensive, but it's just, that's my reasoning behind it. If I'm a resident of Reading and I love going to and playing pickleball, but then I look at the price tag for this, and it's just, it's a lot.
That's why I said, if you could get some court,
Yes.
maybe there's a compromise,
I agree with May, and maybe that's the approach, but
the residents will speak.
That would be the intention when we go out to bid, is to have our designer kind of bid it with a base that's a little bit low and then alternate so we can get to that 7-court design. But we'll have it, here's what the base cost is without lights, here's what it is at, 6 courts, 5 courts, whatever we decide. And I hear your point. I think that it's in line with other projects that we've done in the recreation space. I also think when you look at peer communities that are doing similar types of design, we're seeing these numbers. So there's a lot of comparing us to, you know, asphalt courts on a flat field with catch basins and everything that already exists. And that's not a pure project. And to put something like that, to put these courts in a space like that in Reading could be done, but it would have an impact on residents vis-a-vis the noise. And so that's why the site, and I totally get it, Andre, and you're raising all the right questions.
And the other thing that bothers me also is when you say unpredictable bidding climate, that's another red flag that there is lack of confidence in the cost estimate that they provide. That's why that is there. So once they start working there, it's difficult. The electrical work is there is a lack of confidence in the cost estimate that we have for this project. And
I'd love to sit down with you and talk about, you know, what's driving that lack of confidence. I have confidence in these numbers. There are power lines going through there already to the gun range. There's power on the road. You know, there's not gas on the road. That's why, you know, Recal will be an electric building. So, you know, there's a lot of factors there. These are conservative numbers. So I think I'm pretty confident we can bring it in at 1.5.
still not.
I feel,
I understand.
I'll go and then Joe. I mean, on the I don't think anybody said this particular time, but I do want to repeat the observation that, like, people have, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of time looking for a place to put pickleball courts, and you know, nobody's going to complain about the noise next to the rifle range. That is, you know, probably, I mean, that's the thing. So I don't, you know, obviously I'm not crazy about the estimated cost, and I see the estimated cost as a function of the site, and I see the site as being not especially negotiable, because we have looked and we can't do it at Birch Meadow, and we can't, and I don't even know what the other choices are besides Birch Meadow at this point. We are already doing it at Memorial Park and can't do it more there. So if the site's not negotiable and the cost is a function of the site, then you have to either accept the cost or not, I think. Yeah, my thoughts. Joe?
Yeah, like, and Andre, I definitely hear what you're saying. Like, you know, you look at the capital plan too, and like that's $4 million a year. Like, I'd go as far as be more aggressive and get this done and take 500 out of that and 500 out of free cash and go home. Because I get, you know, we've been talking about this for a long time, and I think there is a big need. You know, personally, I don't play pickleball much, but you know, I played Memorial a couple weeks ago, and the things are dumped now. Like, there's all cracks, and I don't even know if you're going to talk about Memorial, but like, you know, we don't really, soon we won't have a place to play pickleball in Reading. You know, it's like I'm in the over 60 group with Mary Ann, and like, you know, like what are we going to do? Are we going to stay here? Are we going to, you know, move out of this town, right? So I hate like that we're financing this for 10 years. I rather wish we were just getting this done, because I think there really is a need for this in Reading, so.
Okay.
Just pile on to Joe's comment with my recreation hat on. You know, Andrew, you said if this is identified as a community priority, you feel much more happy and comfortable with it. I can tell you that we had more than a meeting where more than 60 pickleball players came to town hall to talk about the need in this town. And if that's who you can get to show up to a random Tuesday night recreation meeting in town hall, you know, I know it's a vibrant community. There's a lot of players and people wait for hours to play. I see it, you know, at the beginning, Mike can tell you, I was like, this is a want. Like, you have some courts, you can play, and now it's a need. There's just not enough space for the demand that they're experiencing. And I am, my finance committee hat on, that's a big number, and it's hard to swallow. And watching us push out trucks year after year that are gonna break down on our DPW guys, and you know, we have a sander that's moved out I think 3 times at this point. So it's hard, and I hear that perspective too. I'm struggling with the number, but I do see that, you know, there's nowhere for them to go, and you know, if people are waiting 2 hours to play one game of pickleball, it is what it is. So
There is no indoor space in here for pickleball, is it?
the rec well, I don't know if they still do, but when I was on rec committee, the recreation division sponsored indoor pickleball in the winter in like school gyms. So I'm sure many of you played in those and will probably say they were not super sufficient, but did the job for what you needed in the off season. But in the spring and summer, so far as I know, those programs don't exist, but I have been out of rec 3 years now, so I don't really know.
Jenna is on the call if,
Yep, Emily is spot on. In the past year or two, we have had a retired pickleball enthusiast run some outdoor programming for us too in the spring and summer, Jack Drinkwater. So he's been tremendous, and yeah, our indoor pickleball programs as well as the outdoor pickleball programs have been really successful.
And I mean, you're impressed by the 60 people crowd. I'm impressed by the raising $200,000.
Also that.
I haven't seen anything like that in my experience here.
It's amazing.
It was one big donor, too, right?
However it happened,
Yep.
it's
Whether
impressive.
nickels, dimes, and quarters, doesn't matter. It's super impressive, and it was an ask at the financial forum. It must have been last year or the year before, and so it's yeah, it's I I'll weigh in as well. I know we're not anywhere near starting to vote on these, but I hear the concerns, but I think the time the time is upon us to be able to act on it as a community.
Okay.
All right.
Any other questions?
No more questions on that. All right.
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for that discussion. Thanks to Jane and her team for all the hard work they've done on this article, as you can see, and Sharon as well. I think the last article that we require your vote on is Article 15, which is the lead replacement program, lead mitigation. This was in 2024, we did completed phase one of this project. So this would be phase two. So it's a borrowing of 1.5. However, through the MWRA, there's a no interest loan, there's grants. It's something that's a federal requirement. So it's on the warrant to be voted on. The town engineer will be at town meeting to explain any more if needed. But we've done this before and it's required, and we have an advantageous borrowing on this plus grants. We are asking for town meeting to approve it, so.
I have a question about the borrowing of if we're really getting a zero interest loan on this, this is still going to be displacing that same this amount of 2.5 million on the capital plan. Is that right? Or is this actually somewhere else? Is this in water enterprise?
This is enterprise funds, so it's separate from the general fund. And the MWRA borrowings are usually 75% grant and 25% loan. Sometimes they're straight loan and they're no interest. So they're definitely desirable for that reason alone, zero interest. It looks like this one is saying it's 25% grant. So I wasn't familiar with that, but it's usually 75% grant and 25% loan. This one looks like it might be the other way around if I'm reading it correctly, but either way, it's a 0% borrowing, which we won't get doing general obligation bonds.
I
Would
suggest.
that be a typo, do you think, Sharon? The 25?
I'm sorry?
Would that be a typo on this, the 25%?
I don't know. I mean,
Grants component.
Ryan makes us aware of the MWRA offerings that we qualify for, so it looks like he approved an additional 100 million. Okay, so I don't know. There is a 25% grant component for communities who fully fund the removal of lead. It could be that this is a specifically new a new offering, and that this one's 25. But most of the ones we've seen, we've accepted ones that were completely loan, 100% loan, but most of them have been 75-25. But this one specifically says 25% grant, so that's why I'm not sure.
But either way, there, you know, it's some component of free money and 0%. I can look and see what I put it on my debt schedule for. Let me take a look.
We can double check with the town engineer.
I was going to make a similar comment to Mark in terms of double check that, because obviously it's a you know 75% grant is an even easier sell.
Yeah,
So-
for sure, right.
So that, and it does say communities who fully fund the removal. So I could imagine there are communities that say, we're not paying the full cost of removing lead services on private property, right? There's the part from the main to the shut off, and then the shut off to the house is usually the homeowner's responsibility. In fact, we had to do ours shortly before this program started.
Yeah, okay.
But having the town fully fund that removal is something obviously the state appears to want to encourage communities to do. I don't know whether I guess if Ryan's not on the line, I'm curious, this unknown material, right? Unknown service material. I wonder what % of those came back as actually being lead. There's something you don't know, and now we dig it up. Did we find that most of those are in fact lead, or most of those are galvanized, or?
Yeah, he wasn't available tonight, he's not on the line, but I could double check that, get back to you on that.
So my debt schedule, because we have to authorize the full amount for 1.5, I do not have notation on if it's a 75-25 split or a 25-75 split. But I have to authorize the whole 1.5, so that's what shows on my debt schedule. So I'm not sure, so we'll definitely have to get back to you, but if there is a grant component, that wouldn't be a borrowing, that would be free money. And he does say there's a 25% grant component. It could be a typo, but all the ones I've seen have been 75% grant, 25% loan.
Any other questions on this? So now I believe this is the part where we double back and vote on everything.
Yep.
All right, I'm getting my notes ready here because, so I want to give, we'll do this one roll call so that Mark gets a chance to vote, especially because some of these may be split votes.
Yeah, how many articles have you, because then you've got to present the articles, and weren't you not going to be there for all the town meetings?
I'm not going to be there
I gotta
for the
keep track.
special night.
All right, so just
And
that
so we're
night.
probably, and we're not assigning those yet because we're not voting on those today. But,
Right.
That'll be after.
And I'm just.
all right,
keeping
yeah, hold
track
on, I'm
of-
counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
So,
So yes, we'll have to do some double duty here because we'll also have two more. We'll have to need to report on the two main articles for the special town meeting.
so we don't do Article 1.
Yeah. I have articles 4, 5, 7, 8
You can do 9 and 10,
as one.
well, no, you can vote on them separate, they're gonna be separate.
Oh, but
So 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10,
11,
7, 8, 9,
11, definitely
13,
13 and
13,
14.
14, and
15,
15.
and 15.
Not anything else?
Nope,
Yes.
those are the only ones that.
So the lead one was 15? Okay.
Yes,
Lose
the lead is
track.
15, because it's a borrowing, you need to vote on that.
All right. I'm trying to remember. Do we need to be? I guess we do need to do a motion for each of
Let's
these.
say motion for each, and
Yeah.
then motion for each line and the budget scorecard, right?
Yes. We'll give Mark a chance to sign off before we do that, and give the
Yeah,
pickleball
but
people a
other
chance to
people-
run away. Before we do that.
We can always do,
So,
what's that? That one's 5? We just do that one last.
Which?
Whatever one we have to do in the scorecard, we just do that one last.
Yeah. No. Well, we're gonna skip over our Article 11 for voting right now, so that we can vote on everything else. All right. So let's. Okay. Yes, please. So we're starting with Article 4.
motion to recommend Article 4 to town
Yep.
meeting as presented with Jeffrey's updates.
As amended, I think is how we all put it. Yes, please.
Second.
All right, thank you, Emily, thank you, Ed. Any discussion on that? Obviously, we, peppered Sharon with questions.
Any more discussion?
Any more discussion on that, right? Any more discussion on that, Ed? Seeing none, let's vote. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. Phew. I'm so happy that I got Jeffrey then, and then I received to skip John. All right, that's 9-0. Article 5, update.
Are you gonna assign people?
Oh yeah, we should assign this. I'm about to say, should I assign Ed because he had all the questions on it? I think so.
What was this for?
Article 4.
Well,
I'll take it, thank
All
you.
right, thank you. All right. Article 5, updates to this year's budget.
motion to recommend Article 5 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Actually, I have an amendment.
Another one?
If you can scroll down a little bit to the subtotal line, Jackie. That 958 should be 988, or 998, sorry. Well,
Like
you take
summing.
688, which is the net, and you add back in the subtotal of the addition of the 310 on the other column, you get 998. That's the quick math.
Yeah, that's a typo. I had to add 40,000 to the health insurance because the MedX went up as of January, and I didn't incorporate that into my projection. So I failed to update that 958 to 9. Is that the correct number? Let me look. Wait, not it.
Maybe 990.
All right, there.
I think it's 998. Because I added 40,000, so it'd be 998.
Yeah.
So that number is wrong, but the
The from free
net
cash.
operating
yeah,
cash
that's
or
right.
the net free cash is correct, I believe.
Thank you for that catch, Jeff.
So,
All he does is pound away on his calculator.
so recommend as amended.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yep.
Joe,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. I got all of us right for the first time tonight. All right, that was 9-0. Now, as for the, I'm trying to remember who had the most interesting questions about this one, but it's been a while. I'll, maybe, I'm about to say, let's go with Jeffrey, because
Go with the human calculator.
calculator. If anything changes between now and town meeting, I know you'll spot it.
Exactly, Jeffrey's got it on it.
So I'm counting on that for you. Thank you. All right.
And I'm afraid if there's a math error that I don't catch, I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
gonna hold you responsible.
So are we tabling Article 6 because there's nothing now, or should we leave it as a blank?
I think we
You leave it until there
Yes,
is something.
yeah.
Okay.
If, I mean, prior years' bills are very unusual to find at April town meeting. They're much more common at November town meeting, obviously, because.
We have done, we've probably met before town
I
meeting.
think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it comes to that, we'll meet before town meeting. So, all right. So that brings us to Article 7, OPEB.
Motion to recommend Article 7 to town meeting as presented unless Jeffrey has another situation.
Second.
All right. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Any discussion? Not really expecting this one. It'd be nice if we could save more, but I think we're saving as much as we can. All right, let's vote. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Mary Ann,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. That was 9-0.
I can do this too if you want.
All right, go for it. I was like, if there's volunteers, I don't, I have no idea how prior chairs did this, if they're just like, had a list, or if it was
They
like,
were much more heavy-handed.
the tyrant. Anyway, all right. Too soon? Okay. All right, so next up is the revolving funds article, Article 8.
For Article 8, do you need separate recommendations on the two different revolving funds?
I don't think so.
Two different revolving funds, I think it's.
One is adding It's something that exists, it's just adding to the
It's a
bylaws,
whole
I'm sorry.
bunch you're running.
Yeah.
It should be done in one article.
No, okay, sorry. I was thinking we were creating a new one, we're just adding it to the bylaws.
Right.
Never mind. So, motion to recommend the contents of Article 8 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Any discussion? All right, let's vote. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Andre,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. 9-0 again. Who wants to do that one? I feel like I should save pickleball for Emily, so I'm gonna put Emily on this one.
Everybody knows I'm talking about pickleball, right?
Right, yeah. No, that's, we understand. It's been, you've been, I spent years earning that privilege. All right, Andre, you like this one? All right. Let me write that down. All right, now, Hero Act Part 1. Nicola, date.
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 9 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Enthusiastic, yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Andre,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. 9-0. See, if you say you're enthusiastic about something, I want to assign it to you, but I won't because of
Well,
pickleball.
if we have to double, I'm happy to do 2.
You're gonna do, whoever has this is probably gonna do 10 as well, probably. makes
Yeah,
sense.
actually, we should double up and do this one and 10 together.
Yeah, 9 and
Makes
10.
That makes more sense. So,
You can do all three.
I could do all 3. I love to hear
or
myself talk.
or John,
I'm in.
or John could do 9 and 10. Sure. I think John could do 9 and 10. All right, there we go.
Nailed it.
That's,
There's your doubling.
the penalty for
Yeah, recommending someone
Don't
else.
forget though, we still have to vote on 10.
we have not voted. Oh, correct. I know. I haven't forgotten that. So, speaking of which,
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 10 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Any more discussion? Didn't think so. All right, let's vote. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Andre,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. All right. Skipping over the budget. Okay, we're done with the easy ones. This one is Article 13, Haven Street, streetscape improvements, or, yeah, we keep saying Haven Street, except it's totally High Street and there's like this much of, but, you know, once upon a time.
Still
So,
counts.
Right.
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 13 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you. So, any discussion on this one?
We didn't have to do 11? I'm just looking back.
No, we skipped 11 because
Right,
it's
oh yeah, that's the budget,
we
okay.
have to do 11.
Yeah.
But we're gonna Mark's internet connection is gonna mysteriously fail before we do 11.
72
Just have to vote on every line. All right. All right, I don't see any discussion, so let's vote on this one. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Marianne,
No, a reluctant yes. I'll add that.
all right. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Andre,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. So that one was also 9-0.
I'm not buying, I'm on the record, I'm not buying the cost, but we'll see.
All right, well, yeah, but we're only, yes,
No, this is Emily.
we haven't authorized. Oh, yes, I'll go ahead and write that. Oh, we do need to assign Haven Street.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was pickleball. I'm like all confused.
Oh, yeah, no, that was, wait, hold on.
That was Haven Street and High Street.
That was High
Th-
Street.
Take away my reluctant. All right, but anyway.
Oh, okay, so that's.
So not Emily. All right, I talk so much, I'll do Haven Street if you want. I'm fine with it.
Okay, you're fine. Okay, that's especially given your vote the last time this came
Yeah,
before
I
us.
changed my mind.
All right, that's
Brought the cost down.
I would say the reduced scope helped ease that one.
yeah. Oh gosh.
That's why we did it. That's why we
Yes.
reduced it.
Sorry, it's been a long day. I can't even read the
I
numbers.
hear that. All right. So moving along, next would be Article 14.
Motion to
Pickleball.
recommend the contents of Article 14 to town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. Any more discussion on this one? We've talked about site, we've talked about $200,000, we've talked about 60 people at meetings. All right, let's vote. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Marianne.
You know my vote, yes.
Okay. So it is a yes. All right. Okay. Very well.
There we go.
I mean, it's
Yeah, no, it's yes, but I hope they get something. It may not be 7, but
Right.
it's not up to me.
yeah. Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Henry,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
and
Did you vote yourself?
yeah, Joe, yes. If I didn't say that.
Nine.
We beat him down.
9-0.
We beat him down.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thing with the,
And
you know, with the,
before I forget to say, because people may walk out at any time, if you haven't signed in, please do so that we can have people's names in the minutes for the thanks. All right. So next up is Article 15. That is led by someone else can do the motion if they really want. It's not a rule.
Like I said, like to hear myself talk.
Well, you haven't assigned Mark, right? So I should write Mark for 15.
Motion to recommend the contents of Article 15 town meeting as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ed. I haven't assigned myself either.
Yeah, I figured you would do 11 though.
I mean, there is some logic to that, yes. So, all right. Okay, so any discussion on the lead pipe replacement program? Seeing none. Let's vote. Mark,
Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
Andre,
yes.
John,
Yes.
and Joe Carnahan, yes. 9-0. So getting over the part where some of our earlier votes were unanimous. All right, and Mark, I'm giving this one to you by default. Since the others have all been given out.
You wanted to get that in before
You
your
get a
before your
line.
line disconnected.
All right.
Okay, I was losing my connection because.
Well, I'm about to say, I'm pretty sure Ed gave me the budget when I was not here last year, so.
Exactly right.
So if you disconnect, you're just gonna get assigned more things, but yes, all right. So now I believe you need, go ahead.
I'll disconnect, but I approve the minutes too from last meeting if you want.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Hi, everybody.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you. All right, so back to the budget. Actually, before I take the report on the budget, we're definite, the one night of town meeting I know I'm gonna miss is May 1st.
Right.
But there's no way we're doing anything besides killing and recalling.
I don't think so.
I mean,
I don't think
I would
so.
think.
Because it'll be this.
This is a special.
Or, and
Special.
we'll take up the budget, even if we run out of other things, I'd imagine we would take up the budget at the beginning. We always take up the budget at the beginning of a meeting, so we'd
Right.
take up the beginning of,
But even
First Monday in May.
we've always, I mean, if someone's gonna miss and they have something that's gonna be on the docket, we just
Figure it out.
we trade it.
oh, I'm sure, right.
Yeah, you trade it out.
Yes,
a little
Can you take up something from regular town meeting at a special town meeting?
We'd have to.
Well, no, we
close.
would.
We'd have to close and reopen.
And then reopen, okay. Yep.
Yes. Oh, come to think of it, I don't actually, I mean, it's up to how the moderator wants to do it. If we're gonna actually like adjourn town meeting from one Monday to the following Monday?
I think that's probably what will happen.
Okay. I mean, if that's what you do, okay, then.
Because we'll skip
then
over the
there's-
special time meeting.
Then it's literally impossible for us to bring up any of the articles we've talked about tonight on that Thursday when I won't be there. Sweet.
So you'll be good. Okay, spending scorecard.
Is it in our packet? Am I in?
Yeah.
It is.
It's like at the beginning of everything.
Way back,
Oh, we
yeah.
took out of order.
We took
That's
it out of
2 or 3.
Yeah, sorry, it was, when I was doing the
doing great.
agenda and we're like, well, obviously we're gonna do the budget. And then I was like, oh, no.
Well, we're gonna wait and see if Jeffrey has any amendments.
Yeah, you've been crunching the numbers over there.
Oh, my gosh.
These.
Really dump them into
You need
Excel.
AI to do this for us, right? So just kind of go through.
Don't ask AI to do math. Don't, just, no.
Kind of hallucinations would come up with.
You can ask it to write, I should have asked AI to write my budget summary.
I read it. It looked good. It could have written it for you. It got all personal.
I'm not sure if that's a compliment or a.
No, I mean, you could have asked it, but it got
Yes.
all.
I could ask it to shorten it. That's actually, I'd be curious what it does. But I probably won't now that it's written. All right. So let's see. I can't remember. Do we do a motion on each line, or do we just have a vote on each line?
Motion and a vote.
Motion and a vote on every line.
It's really tedious.
Right, well,
really
I know if we have a
tedious.
motion,
Let's
we
see how
do.
long it's 9. Let's see how long it takes.
Yeah, and we motion and vote. It'll be much quicker since we can raise hands.
But it's, move to approve the amount on line B99. We don't
Yes.
actually have to read the whole.
Yep.
Yes, all right. Okay, so now we have our format, move to approve the amount on line X.
And then discuss it.
And then we can discuss it.
Great. So we're not gonna, are we hearing from town manager first at all on anything?
No,
I mean,
this is a culmination of last
Right,
week.
we spent all of last meeting on this, so.
Yeah, no, I'm not
Just-
saying any more than that.
Just check. Before I
Matt's tapped
start,
out.
before I start making motions.
No, go right ahead.
All right. So motion to approve the amount shown on line B99. No, not approve. Recommend. Let me start
Second.
over.
I guess
I gotta get it right.
I'll second you every time, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're doing great. So motion to recommend the amount shown on B99 to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. Any further discussion on this other than holy crap, that's a lot of benefits?
I just want to confirm that most of that benefits is the health insurance, that other benefits weren't also going up a lot. We weren't asked to fund more, but that's bigger than the health insurance increase.
Benefits was something like 15 or 16 out of those 25 million.
Okay.
I can look it up, of course.
No, I mean, it's said it's gone up 16.
The benefits includes health insurance, pension, so the pension goes up 8.3%. So there's a lot going on in that benefits number, not just health insurance.
Okay, yeah, because it's
think I-
more than the health insurance, that's just what
Yeah,
I was
I
asking.
can't remember, Marianne, I responded to what you meant. I'm not sure if it's what you said, and I responded with the wrong words, but I think you and I are both talking about the health insurance in particular as the largest component of that.
Yeah,
line.
but it looks like something else went up more
Yes.
significantly too. 'cause the
Right,
health
if only,
insurance was
if
13.
everything else was flat and 2/3 it went up by 13%, we wouldn't get that such figures, but other things went up as well.
Yep, okay, no, that's it, my own comment, we can take a vote.
All right, so all in, doing this by show of hands, since we're no longer hybrid, all in favor? It's 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on C99 capital line of the spending scorecard to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily, thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Talked a bunch about this in the form of Article 4, but, all right, all in favor? That's everybody, so 8-0.
Motion to recommend the amount shown on line D99 debt service, D99 debt service to town meeting, sorry.
Second.
You're good. Any discussion? All in favor? That's everyone, 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line E99 educational vocational to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion other than another, holy crap, that's gone up a lot.
But that's
Well, school.
the Voc school.
That's the Voc, it's the Voc. It's totally the Voc school, and it's kind of funny that it's
New
not
building construction.
reckoned as capital, but
Students there.
it's not really our capital, so like, I get why it's, does accommodate, I mean, it would accommodate costs either way, so. What Sharon's doing makes sense. In terms of how it's tracked. All right, then let's vote. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line F99 finance committee reserves to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Same as every year. All right, sounds good. All in favor? That's
Motion.
8-0, unanimous.
Sorry.
Nah, sorry, I should actually say that.
Jumping the gun.
No.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line G91 administrative services wages to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. Voting, all in favor? 8-0, unanimous.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line G92 administrative services expenses to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? All right, voting, all in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line G91A technology wages to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line G92A technology expenses to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Voting, all in favor? See, this is so much fun. That's 8-0. We're
There you go.
Sorry. Thank you.
I didn't want to beat you this
No,
time.
I appreciate it.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line H91 public service wages to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? All right, voting, all in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line H92 public service expenses to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Voting, all in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line I91 finance wages to town meeting.
Second.
This is our single solitary new half head count. But we also know how busy Sharon is, so I think that's, All right, any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line J91 public safety wages to town.
Did we skip finance expenses? Sorry.
Strike that from the record.
Never happened.
Motion, rewind. Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line I92 finance expenses to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? No. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
I switched where I had the
Yeah,
mouse. I
we
got
can
messed up.
vote them out of order too, it's not against the law.
Well, we don't want to miss any, so.
Yeah.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line J91 public safety wages to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Wait, were you? You're gonna vote? Okay. Now we're voting, Ed. That is 8-0. Thank you.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line J92 public safety expenses to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Oh, come on.
Attaboy, Joe.
All right. All in favor? Thank you. 8-0.
Well, you started it, yeah. Good catch.
Chaos. Bedlam.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line K91 public works wages to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line K92 public works expenses to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion?
I just don't know why it's dropping, but anyway,
This is public.
minus 10%, it just stands out.
The tree cutting.
Okay,
The tree cutting was a one-time thing the previous fiscal year.
all right,
I remember that one. I think so.
yep, all right, that's it.
That's the one that we didn't need in the town works, don't we?
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah. No, the forestry division in particular went way down. All right. So there was discussion. How exciting.
All
All
right,
right.
yeah,
And now we're
just
voting.
remember.
All in favor? 8-0. I do actually want to, if people have concerns, we should actually talk about them. All right. Thank you.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line K93 public works snow and ice to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Keep praying for warm weather. All right. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line K94 public works streetlights to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Nope. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line K95, Public Works rubbish to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Make sure that's in the minutes. And any discussion? Nope. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line L91, library wages to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. All right. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line L92, library expenses to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Nope. All right. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line M91, core facilities to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line M92, town buildings to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. I'm the one who can't even remember who's on the committee, so like getting the numbers is. All right. Any discussion? Nope. Voting. All in favor? Thanks. 8-0.
This is a biggie.
Yeah.
Motion to recommend the amount shown on spending scorecard line U99, school department to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Any more discussion? We had a whole meeting for this. Nope. All right, let's vote. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line W99, water enterprise fund to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. All right. Let's vote. All in favor?
Motion to recommend
8-0.
amount, oops, sorry.
No, that was me. I was slow.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line X99, sewer enterprise fund to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. All right. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line Y99, stormwater enterprise fund to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line Z99, PEG access enterprise fund to town meeting.
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. Any discussion? Nope. Voting. All in favor? 8-0.
Motion to recommend amount shown on spending scorecard line ZZ9, landfill enterprise fund to town meeting.
Second.
Any discussion other than what a weird number for the line? No. All right. Voting. All in favor? 8-0. Shockingly, 8-0. All right.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, Joe. You just did.
Nailed it.
Oh, God. Can't imagine doing that roll call. All right. So let's see. We actually.
We have reports and
Thank you, Mark.
minutes, I
Took
think.
12 minutes.
Yes, we skipped liaison reports because I knew there were a bunch of people who wanted to talk about pickleball, and I did want to get to that. But we can circle back if anyone had any. Again, it's only been a week since our last meeting, but there was a select board meeting and some, other committees as well. So, is there anything anybody wanted to report on? I know your brain. You probably, if you had at the beginning of the meeting, you probably forgot by now. I know I would have.
I can give you select board reports.
Okay.
So they are going to establish, they discuss the master plan where they want to pursue grants, but they're thinking of forming a committee to evaluate the master plan for the town. And I guess finance-wise, two things happened. They reappointed Sharon Engstrom as town accountant for 25-26. And they want to they authorized another appraisal of the Pleasant Street Center. They're gonna further discuss it, but I know we had appraisals before. We were thinking of making it a replacement senior center, so they had a lot of discussion on how can they monetize something out of that, whether it's leasing it, selling it, making some money off of it, using it to offset costs of other things. But I think they wanna get another look at the value of it.
But is the permanent building committee driving that or the select board?
Select board for the assessment.
Yeah.
They'll do the assessment, so.
Yeah, they don't have a definite plan of what they're gonna do with it.
Yeah,
Say the-
it just gives them another option.
The permit building committee's scope is really buildings that are being constructed, not use of existing ones, right?
We thought the
Well,
last meeting
they
they said.
did they did the building analysis that Joe was mentioning before.
Okay, all right.
They went through
Yeah.
all the town buildings, so, yeah.
I think the concern was if they, whatever other use, if they were they'd still have to do some renovation of it to make it
Yeah.
usable for whoever might ultimately use it.
Elevators, those things like that.
And the gas leak smell
Or
and,
whatever the smell is. The fact that we don't know what it is, yeah, a different problem. You were gonna say?
Quick question, you mentioned that they're gonna set up, for the,
the master plan committee.
a master plan, are they just looking in the long term, or are they gonna look at the capital?
They
plan?
had a master, I don't know about the capital.
It had both of them in the title, master and capital.
Yeah,
But they
okay.
kind of spent more time talking master plan.
It's like master, like they had one in 2005, you know, what character of the town do we want?
Yeah.
What do we want this region to look like, or that region to look like?
It's-
So that things aren't kind of just
Super
slapped
large
together
in
and all over downtown in 10 different styles with, you know, okay, this is the
Always wondering
restaurant.
when I hear that they're gonna set up a committee for the capital plans, it just, I don't know.
No, I think capital
This is
will
not
be a part of
standard,
it. Yeah, I think a capital would be a part of it, but I
I
don't
think
think
it feels like it would be an outcome once they make decisions, like say they decided, oh, we wanna make our town center be, or something with the Eastern Gateway, right?
I was gonna say the same thing, yep, I mentioned that.
If that involved any construction, but I think that it's just, we haven't done it in so long, and then in between, there's been all this 40B and 40R and MBTA and kind of just, I wanna
And
call
not-
it
and not a lot of good-
non-cohesive development,
And not a
but
lot of good notes on, like, how to do the next one. So I think that, that was part of it, is, looking at other master plans and from other communities.
it's been raised at town meeting over and over
Yeah,
by
so I
some
think
people
it's-
too.
I do think there'll be a section to it that looks at capital, and that's why I was asking the question about, to Joe about the facilities plans.
To your question, I haven't heard anything about the idea of a capital planning committee. I know that's a thing in other
misunderstood that.
communities, yeah. But they just have a standing committee. And that was, I remember with the, I spoke with a select board member from Winchester who was talking about their recent CPA adoption, and their capital planning committee was itself a very engaged and opinionated entity in the process. And I was like, we don't even have we don't have one of those.
Yeah, we've talked about having our own capital
Yeah. I mean, it's tough, I don't know.
committee, but.
And there was one more update that is kind of just, when I said MBTA communities, I said, oh yeah, I meant to update you this, and Matt could probably fill in. I was speaking to a member of the CPDC who told me that we did get a letter February 25th, they mentioned it in the CPDC meeting, that there's a first half of the hurdle where our MBTA zoning changes were approved by the state, and now HLC, the other division has to approve of them. Do you know more about that, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, that's true, we did get a letter saying that, and we don't expect any issues with that, but we did get a letter saying that we got first a letter saying that we were in temporary compliance, and then when the regs came out and whatnot, we got a second letter, so I can share that with the FinCom.
I mean, it's not, so are we in compliance?
Yes, by and large, I'll share the letter with you. I haven't read it in a little bit, but I did review it with Andrew when it came in.
Yeah, I just think it would be a good announcement to the community if
Yeah,
we're in
sure.
compliance and we're,
Yes.
off the hook with the state, would be good to tell everyone.
Good idea, yeah.
No, it's true. It's not a finance thing, but it's a good idea. Yeah, Jeff?
Just, can we just go back to like Pleasant Center? So what's the appraisal going to do though? Because I thought the last meeting we talked about, maybe I misunderstood it, but I thought the permanent building committee was going to be involved looking at the options. So what would the appraisal do? Just look at, I don't know, Matt, do you
Jane was gonna
know?
finalize quotes, and I'm going by a news article on it now too, because I couldn't remember if
we're
they're
doing
gonna
a
talk five
commercial appraisal on
companies
it
to do
to
quotes.
find out how much it's worth, if we end up selling it, everything's sort of on the table at this point. So we looked at some possible uses, either town uses, renting it out to a nonprofit or a commercial entity. and also they wanna know how much it's actually worth if we sell it. So
Okay.
that's what the commercial.
And would we have that at, like a town meeting?
Yeah, the goal is to get that before town meeting, because that's probably gonna come up at town meeting.
Yes, okay, all right, thanks.
And that's a historical building, right?
Yeah, yes,
Or part of it?
partially, yeah.
Yeah, partial, okay.
The exterior.
Yeah. It's a fire station.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I'm not even a big historical preservation nut. I love that one. So. All right. Any other liaison reports? Yes.
A couple weeks ago, the Eastern Gateway report was, Eastern Gateway Exploratory Committee report was that there will be a survey coming out soon, and that survey is now available. So I'll find it on the town website. Give us your thoughts on what you'd like to see down there.
Thank you, John. Anything else? All right, so next on the agenda is the Finance Committee report to town meeting. I actually drafted it in advance of this meeting, so you could look at it.
Excellent. It was really, really well done. Really, really well done. And a great idea to include it in the packet. But I thought you did an excellent job.
Thanks.
Pretty jealous. We're much shittier than those.
I'm not trying to make it.
No, too bad. It happened.
I think you're setting the stage for the override warning in here.
Yeah,
Why
I
don't
mean,
you
right, I'm-
just say it more overtly?
Very timely.
You're setting a stage.
Yeah, no, it's very, I mean.
Very
I've
timely on
heard,
the back
you
end of
know,
last
I
meeting.
have, heard the, idea, I've heard.
It's
I've
right
heard
near
the-
the end of the packet.
Yep.
Maybe it's,
I only have a 27-page packet.
Oh, I have a
Oh, it was like
30-page
a
packet. You
revised
gotta go to,
Oh, yeah,
You gotta go to the-
Jackie resent the packet.
or just go to
Wanna look at
the
that
town
now.
calendar for today and then
Yeah, that'll do it.
and bring up whatever the packets is.
My Gmail shows me all of the attachments, so I just picked.
Oh, I don't even, I
Oh.
didn't have
Spread
time to
it-
look at
spread
email.
it
I
all
just
the
go to the
votes, right?
town calendar.
Scorecard was there, so we're good to go.
Yeah. Yes, no, but I do, I mean, to your point, Marianne, I have, heard from, you and others that, it is our responsibility to be clear about, not only this year's budget, but future budgets and where we stand. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, the ultimate would be just like reading it. It's gonna be in the warrant and you don't read it, but if you read it, then I guess people would be forced to hear it if they don't read. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'm not planning, we don't do these out loud anymore. I mean, I
Right.
think back in the day, there was like a state of the town address by the select board chair and
There
then the
might
finance
still,
committee.
there might still be that.
We haven't recently, and I mean, I think people kind of like the part where town meeting finishes sooner.
Yeah.
Which I don't as much as I'd love to hear my own voice for 3 pages.
Emily will read it for you.
You could summarize this in 5 bullet points.
I will in
Override is
fact.
coming.
Yes, when I, well, definitely gonna have,
Yeah, and then.
definitely gonna offer a lot more color than that. That's the,
I know.
I mean, that is the difficulty of communicating. The nuance is important, because if you just tell people like, oh, we increased free cash spending
but
by
if you're telling
68%,
people, like, what
they're gonna
went
think we're a
up
bunch
and-
of maniacs.
And what went up and, the people who
Yes.
are new to here who didn't know, well, how much was the last override for again? And
Right. Yes.
how we've been plugging the gap since then. People don't understand that. That's,
Yeah.
I try to explain it to people, but it's nice to just see it laid out.
Yeah. So yeah, I won't.
Sharon's got her hand up.
Oh, yeah, Sharon.
Did we ever talk about the increase to free cash? Did we vote to increase free cash from the 5.8 to $6 million to support the budget?
That wasn't inherently built into what you asked for us in the
It
write-up?
was built into it, but I guess I was just wondering if we needed a separate vote, because you guys voted the free cash level at 5.8, and everything I showed you was built on $6 million. The 200,000 extra needed for the health
was a vote from
insurance
last
was
fall.
built in at this. So I just want to make sure that nothing additional needed to be done.
Well, if we did the
It's not on the agenda.
If we did Article 5, then didn't that include it in Article 5?
No, it's Article 11. We're talking about the FY26 budget.
Right.
And the fact that last fall, our recommendation, which I believe was a recommendation.
Yeah, that would be
Was,
my take.
you know,
Budget guidance,
yes.
not budget
So
mandate.
it's interesting. We don't vote.
We talked about different ways to cover that extra 200, whether it be free cash or me changing my investment income projection or reducing.
Yeah, that's true.
OPEB.
I
But
mean,
we voted benefits as it is, so the only real options I have left are the free cash or increasing my investment income. So I just want to make sure I'm clear.
yeah, no, that's,
'Cause
thank you for calling that out explicitly, because you're right. We did, I mean, so the thing is, and I think I made this comment last.
the original recommendation was 578.
Yes, yeah. I made this comment last week where it's basically our choices are, we could take it out of free cash, we could take it out of something where we're counting on it going to regeneration, in which case we're taking it out of free cash. So I honestly didn't think it mattered too much which of those, you know, which way we take the extra 200,000 out of free cash. Whether it's reducing regeneration by 200,000 or taking 200,000 out of free cash.
Okay.
So I don't know if people have a strong opinion about that.
It's kind of the same. I just didn't know if you guys had an official conversation, had specific feelings about where you wanted it to be.
Do other people have thoughts?
You mean, so it's free cash versus OPEB?
No, it's free cash versus her adjusting her projection for
So
investment.
you guys already voted the benefits line, so that's off the table.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay.
So it's
She
just
brings
be
it up
me,
later to-
show
Not
to
continuing.
Free cash.
5.8
Free cash.
Right,
for
well, yeah.
increasing investment income.
Right.
Sorry.
But I mean, the thing about the invested income projection is that it's just a projection. Our vote does not cause investment income to change, more's a pity. So, you know, it's either we, I guess that's kind of where I was going with the, I guess OPEB we could have actually seriously reduced. Geez, this is not, I know the rules for reconsideration in town meeting. I don't know the rules for here. But I guess you do a poll as to whether people actually want to go back and reopen line B9, our
I
recommendation.
mean,
on line B9.
you don't usually I'm sorry. You don't usually tell me about, what I can, what the revenues are. That's up
That's
to
just it.
me.
We don't vote on
I
revenue, so.
just need to know that you guys are okay with the free cash being used, or if you prefer me to do it the other way.
I think free cash is safer, like, right,
Yeah.
because we don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
So OPEB, I'm against touching OPEB because
Yeah.
we are very
Behind.
behind compared to other places. And when I was treasurer, there were talks that the state could mandate it, just like they mandate pension.
yes.
And if they mandate it, then we are in kind of big trouble. But not
Yeah.
big trouble, but
Yeah.
it's another thing that you have to.
Yeah.
And free cash is the interest income is one thing that you always want to be careful, because if you over budget and the interest income comes low, then you have another big hole to fill. So I'm not a big fan of touching that interest income.
In which, because if we had another big hole to fill, we would fill it with free cash. So again, it's a free
Right.
cash then or
Just cut
free
out the
cash
middleman.
now,
You
like,
just cut out the
Exactly.
middleman.
we could,
I'll just say,
yes. No, I think it's a good question, how we want to think about it. And OPEB versus not OPEB was probably, God, I wish I thought about this clearly before. No, I think that was the real question. I personally with Andre in terms of like,
So
we're not
Joe-
overfunding.
The only thing you probably need now to change your budget summary.
Do I?
You have 5.8 of free cash.
And no, I say we recommended in the fall and that it was subsequently increased to 6.
Okay, then, yeah, okay, so I didn't read the second.
So I actually
sentence.
jumped the gun. My letter would change, actually, my summary needs to change if we,
So your summary needs to match what Sharon does.
yes.
Well, Joe's already written it down, Sharon. I think we.
Keyword is draft. It's totally, we can change it. We can
But the
totally
thing
change
is,
it.
this is support, so it's not like, because it was in the packet technically, we're not, talking about it now is not like not open meeting.
Oh, yeah,
law.
no, well, this
We didn't
is-
specifically say, because you put this in the packet.
I mean, it's
here.
also, yes, we're fine OML wise. Thank you for looking into that, but that's, I'm thinking about that. Because, line the alternative to free cash, one of the alternatives to free cash would have been reducing line B99 that we voted on, that is on our agenda tonight. So alternatives to, you know, what we did are in scope for discussions of what we did. All right, is there anyone who wants us to do anything besides just say, okay,
It's understood.
it's coming out of, it's in revenues, and then, which we don't vote on.
Yeah.
And,
Recognized and understood, but I don't think we need to do
and
anything.
Sharon, just give me a heads up if I need to change my letter from 6 back to 5.8. But sounds like you were leaning towards the 6 anyway, so.
I was leaning towards free cash because I know we have the free cash and I don't, you know, investment income, we don't know when that's gonna start to plummet, you know, so that's where I prefer to take it is from free cash, but
Yeah.
it's not up to me when it comes to free cash, it's up to you guys.
So Sharon, on that point, just if, I thought of something here. So if you went down the first path and you said, okay, well, we're gonna do it based on investment income, how would you re-report, or like, what would be the stages? Say you thought it was gonna be, you know, whatever the investment income, you overdid it by 200, it came in under 200. What would you have to do at that point when you realize that? Like, what would the process be that you'd have to do at that point?
So it would be if I had a deficit in revenues in total,
Yeah.
like, because if other revenues are up and cover that deficit for investment income, then I wouldn't need to do anything.
Just, yeah, so
But
just the
what I would
deficit.
need to do
Yeah, so
is,
say if you had a deficit.
I'm sorry?
So say if you did have a deficit in revenues, what would we
I would have
do?
to bring it back to town meeting and get free cash.
Okay.
I mean, it would be just like what we do, it'd be Article 5. It would go into Article 5, the current year budget adjustments. Just like, you know, when
Yeah, so
when
that,
vacation buy-ins come in.
so
or
even,
when-
so given that scenario, I'm even more in line with what we did tonight, so.
Right, because in that scenario, guess what we would do? Town meeting would have to vote on spending free cash. And it wouldn't have a whole lot of choices either, because that's not like, again, we can't will the investment income higher.
Yep.
But yeah, Sharon, thank you for bringing that up. Definitely, all right, anything else to be said? Anything else about the, yes?
Yeah, too, like, well, first, like, great letter. The only thing about the third sentence,
Oh, okay.
it says like Reading is well positioned to fund a level service budget, and then you kind of say but. I don't know if you could take the well out. I'm not sure if we're well positioned.
I mean,
I know maybe the glass is half full, but
yeah,
type of
it's, I
person,
mean,
but-
or, okay, so point taken, there's some semantics here about like, well, we're well positioned to fund it this year. That doesn't mean we're well positioned to fund it in
Yeah.
FY '29.
We're also taking a lot of free cash, and you say that we
Yeah.
could be using in the future, right, to help.
Yes, we're well positioned to fund it because we have a mountain of free cash, but.
You just say Reading is able to fund, or,
Yeah, like something.
mean-
Yeah, just.
I mean, that's, hold on, I need to put this in my notes here. Also, I can't find my own letter.
I don't know. Maybe I'm being too.
No, this is good feedback.
well, by
Because I'm
saying
worried
Reading
about
is
people that
able to
don't
do
read
it
your whole
now,
letter
then
too,
it's
so.
saying, will we be able to do it in the future? Because you ask questions, like
Right, or will we-
even your how is this possible, you said the keyword is operating, I felt like you should also say, how is this possible, you know, inflation is, I mean, the 68% increase, we can do that with operating, but why was there a 68% increase in free cash used?
right, and it's
Because
because,
the budget's growing, right?
well, right,
too.
because operating is growing at 3.5%.
Yeah.
And revenues, once you take out the effect of the debt exclusion, I think Sharon said that was like 3.49, which couldn't be closer practically. But then, because accommodated costs,
That's what's growing faster
yes,
than
by
the
the
15%.
3.5% is, you know,
30 and 13.6 and.
yeah. Is town and its school, not counting accommodated costs. Those are going up, both going up 3.5%. But accommodated costs, boy howdy. So let me write this down about. Yeah. I did read a bunch of these previous summaries before writing mine. There's often a lot of talk about, patting ourselves on the back for what a good job here we do here. And we do a lot of things right. The fact that
No, we didn't
you know-
have any, we didn't have any any employees in town or schools go on strike.
Yep.
So we managed to get those contracts in and we're able to pay them.
Yes, we didn't have to yes, we had neither an override nor a strike. Like, that is, whereas practically everyone else had one of the two or both. So that's good. And, yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, if with benefits doing what they're doing and rubbish disposal doing what we know it's going to do. So, but yeah, I'll try to correctly calibrate the opening optimism there. I mean, we're fine this year. We didn't, there are no cuts.
I'm fine with it being opposition for this year.
I agree.
Yes,
Joe's being nitpicky.
well,
Joe doesn't want to go home.
Using a lot of free cash to be well positioned, but.
I mean, it's because we are well positioned by having a bunch of free cash. That was kind of where I was going with it.
Yeah,
If that's not clear, though, that's actually, again, if
You could leave the well-positioned and then, like, for
italicized current.
for just the, for the coming year,
Yes,
What
current,
about?
yes.
There's also people that just read the first paragraph, that's always, worried about
Yeah,
those
that's
people.
true.
So,
Yeah.
again, I don't wanna.
Well, this isn't a news article, but we ought to have the headline. and-
Right. I do get to a bombshell
Something
by
is
halfway
coming,
through
click
the
here.
second paragraph, yes. I'm about to say, you won't believe how much free cash this town is using.
It's always like, to get you to click.
It's the truth.
One weird trick, town treasurers hate this. All right, okay, we're getting
Yeah, we're getting
We're getting
tired,
punchy, it's
silly.
too late, all right. All right, I mean, I will stare at that sentence and figure out what I wanna do with it.
When do you have to have it submitted?
That's a great question.
Tomorrow, I think. I think we're going to print with this tomorrow. Jackie, you can correct me if she's on there, but, so soon.
Oh golly. I feel like,
Tomorrow.
oh,
We're done.
you know what, it was last year, because I remember last year we talked about it, but it hadn't been drafted yet. But last year, we also only had 3 budget meetings. So this conversation would have been happening a week ago, in which case there would have been a week left to
Right.
spare
Yeah. we
before
finished
printing.
Yeah, I did mine the night before, so.
All right.
Perfect be the enemy.
Yeah. no.
Okay, all right, well, in that case, I mean, we could probably ship it as is. Somebody will find a typo.
I mean, if you want something, the American English punctuation, the period should be inside of the quote and after operating.
Oh goodness, we're gonna get to that level.
And I don't,
Someone send
It
out for some
happens 3 or
coffee.
4 times through the document.
yeah, it's,
And I understand that you don't like it that way, but that's American Standard Punctuation.
yes.
Remember, both of
The
these.
privilege of working in
Well,
a,
then should there be a colon after must either before the series of bullet points? Is that?
Yeah.
And every
right.
time you have an and or a but, you need to press.
I'll accept the American quote thing. I mean, it's
I think it's fine.
I could blame my coworkers who are, of course, from all over the world, or I could blame, but the fact is, Jeffrey's right, I don't like the American custom on that, I don't think it makes sense. But anyway, that's,
Yeah, there's
I don't-
several
I don't
more
make
of
the
those,
rules.
Jackie, as I scan through it.
Oh, you mean the comma after is before
no,
operating?
no,
Not
when you
periods
end a
outside.
sentence with a quotation, the
Oh,
terminal,
that,
the
yeah.
terminal symbol of the sentence goes inside the quotes, even if it is not part of the quote. It just has to go inside the quotes because it does. That's what I was taught in school, and so that's why I'm
The
not.
moral of the story, you use too many quotes.
I mean, they say you can identify people by their writing styles or whatever, like the,
You did a good job. I stand by, you did an excellent job.
yes.
You
Yes.
got debt exclusions there, Jackie?
Yeah, son of a gun. Oh my God.
Comma goes inside.
Where's-
I mean, I could have, okay, so know what I'm doing next time.
Best
Invest to save.
Best to save, there you go.
No, what I'm doing next time, because what I ended up, I used quotes to emphasize some things where it could have been italics, but lesson learned. Invest to save is a quote, actually, it's a Tom Wise quote from when he was talking to us about the school budget, but I liked it, so I'm stealing it.
future agendas?
I think so.
Well, we got a meeting on, we're voting on something on, at 6:30 on the 2nd, and that's it?
Vote on the special
So our next meeting will be, unless something's changed, and I'm hoping Jackie will yell at me if something's changed, at 6:30. Actually, we don't have a place yet. I don't know if there's an update on that.
Oh, was it gonna be the high school library, but we
Or
thought to go
a
down.
classroom or
In
something.
classroom or
Library High School is, yes, continuing library is booked for that at 6:30 on the 2nd.
Booked for us?
yes.
Sweet. All right. I feel more open having it in the library than having it in a random classroom.
Yeah.
I'm aware that precinct meetings happen in classrooms, but precinct meetings are also part of town meeting and are not actually
School
open
committee meets
meeting
in the
law, so
library,
like,
so that's no.
yeah. No, I like it if we meet in the library. That's, if anybody wants to watch us vote on 2 articles. It is kind of anticlimactic because we've had about 17 different forums in which we've heard about Recal and Killam, and then we're gonna,
And there's more in the coming weeks too that we don't even
and
have
we'll
to
be
part
at,
of.
yes, and we'll be back, we will be at our 72nd such forum that night. But prior to that 72nd forum, we will get together and, just the, however many of us are there in person, vote on the recommending those 2 articles. But I understand the wording's not ready now. We can't vote on it now, so.
No, you didn't want to, the select board's gonna close the warrant on it on April 1st, so we discussed doing it after the select board
Yeah.
votes, right? And the
Right.
wording's pretty close, so. yeah.
Okay. All right, so that will be our, and yes, I think my proposed agenda, Marianne, you were on this email thread, was literally just that, not anything else for that meeting. Not gonna try to do minutes or anything. I don't even know when our next meeting is
I
after.
don't know if we technically have public comment and someone shows up to say something, but I think that's probably it.
I mean, if someone shows up to say something, I'll let them, but I wasn't planning on putting on the agenda. Strictly speaking, anything we do that isn't a hearing doesn't have to have public comment.
Yeah.
I think it's bad form not to, but,
Well, it's a hearing to vote on, is it a hearing to open on
no.
the special town meeting warrant now?
No, we have to have a hearing on the budget. We don't have
Hearing
to
on the
have a
budget,
hearing
not
on
even
town
on the
meeting warrant.
special town meeting warrant.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then the one thing I was trying to look up is our schedule.
We had a placeholder for next Wednesday, but I don't think you're gonna need that.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Forum's next Wednesday then?
What?
Yes. Yeah, there'll be a candidate forum on
Monday
Wednesday.
and
Yeah.
Thursday?
So,
Is it Wednesday? Is it Wednesday?
Wednesday, no. Yes.
It's 2 of them.
Yes. And then, we'll have our, okay, so then we don't meet again as a committee until June, when we will undoubtedly be asked for some FinCom reserves to make something balanced at the end of the year.
Well, I'll see you. We're at town meeting.
Yes, but we won't meet as a committee as well.
Oh, gotcha, yep.
Where we have.
But as I learned with that sentence about well-positioned, I'd be careful not to lean too much on people hearing every word. So what's the coming year? I didn't say forever. Okay, but if I'm leaning too much on those words, it's not clear communication. Duly noted. I would try to frame that differently this time, although it sounds like too late for this one. All right, so I don't think we have to talk about any future agendas beyond that. I think we have some minutes to approve.
Move to approve minutes from March 12th, 2025.
Second.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Emily. Taking one more look. I feel like there was something that I was thinking of nitpicking and then decided not to.
Probably a quote somewhere.
No. because when they analyze Jackie's writing, they're going to find there's no quotes in it. So. Obviously, this was a busy meeting with a lot of stuff. Oh, yeah. The library professional services line, I think, is for more than outsourced vendors, but Amy did use the words outsourced vendors. I actually rewound the thing. So, like, that's fine as minutes. Anyone else? All right, if there is no further discussion, let's vote. So all in favor of approving the minutes as presented? Any opposed? Okay, and one abstain, so that was a 7-0-1 What's different?
Mark said he wanted to vote to approve before he left.
He's not here, so it doesn't count. All right, in that case, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you, Ed, thank you, Mary Ann. All in favor? 8-0.
Good job, Joe.